Hey guys. This is part 5 of What If Naruto is hiding her identity, and secretly a girl. Hit like and subscribe if you like this one, and also please check the author in the description. Let's start.
We are paid, that's all. We are God.
Chapter 22, Motivation. He pulled the blanket over his head, refusing to acknowledge the world. Unfortunately, the world pressed in on him. The rattling of his door banged against his nerves, making him grind his teeth. The village was far too dark for him to get out of bed yet. Go away, he called, his voice coming out in a rough croak. Shikamaru wouldn't have dared to say that to his mother or father, but he could tell by the heavy fistfalls on his door that it was either of them. Shikamaru, it's time to wake up, a high-pitched voice yelled. Great, it's both of them. Shikamaru sighed, peeking out from under his blankets as he heard his door open. Choji walked in with a wide smile, looking perfectly at home. Ino, however, tiptoed over the wooden floor, looking around curiously. Your room is surprisingly clean, she commented. I thought boys were meant to be messy. It's too dark outside to be awake, Shikamaru muttered before he threw the blankets back over his head. It's 9 in the morning, Choji retorted. It's my day off. Let me sleep. And to think, he's our superior now, Ino laughed. Cold clung to Shikamaru's chest as the warmth of his blankets was ripped away from him. He glared at Choji as Ino gave a noise of disgust. Will you put a shirt on? This is my room. Shikamaru rolled his eyes at the blonde. He flipped onto his stomach, cramming his pillow under his head. Shikamaru, get up, we want to train, Ino snapped. The boy had no doubt that she was crossing her arms and that her left nostril was flaring just slightly like it did whenever she was annoyed. He was smart in not telling her that she was so predictable, and that the one nostril flare made her face look lopsided. Go train, enjoy. We want to train as a team, Choji clarified, sounding amused. We can't let Naruto surpass us when he comes back. Shikamaru groaned, groping around for his blanket only to remember that Choji stole them. Opening one eye, he glared at his friend. Give me my blankets back. No, now get up and stop pouting. Why would I be pouting? Shikamaru rolled back over onto his back, watching as his friend sighed. Fine. He stood, only to give Ino a blank look. Will you leave? Why would we leave? You'll probably just go back to sleep. With amusement, Shikamaru reached for the waistband of his pajama pants, watching as Ino yelped, turning red before she spun on the spot, covering her face. Okay, I'm leaving. She ran from the room, nearly running into the doorframe after forgetting to uncover her face. Choji chuckled, dropping Shikamaru's blankets onto the bed. That was mean. She does realize boys wear underwear too, doesn't she? Apparently not. Shikamaru waited for Choji to leave the room before changing into his training clothing, zipping the vest with a sigh. He quickly made the bed, which was made harder with the mess the blankets were in, before joining his friends out in the living room. He let Ino drag him through the streets of the village. Apparently they were to have breakfast with the Suma-sensei, which just made Shikamaru wonder why they hadn't told him of their plans earlier. It still felt too early to be awake though. He kept his grumbling to a minimum, mainly because Ino dug her nails into his wrist whenever she became particularly annoyed. Either she had woken up in a bad mood or she didn't enjoy having to wake him up. Either way, she was not in a good mood. Honestly, will you hurry up, Shikamaru? We're going to be late, Ino snapped as the cafe came into sight. You know, Ino, I'm impressed with you. When she looked at him suspiciously, he went on. You can still talk to Choji without blushing, even after kissing him. Or did you two start a relationship and just failed to tell me? Ino's fair skin bloomed into a rich cherry red and she dropped Shikamaru's wrist. You're just jealous that both Choji and I have had a first kiss and you haven't. Shikamaru just raised an eyebrow and put his hands in his pockets. He was not going to tell Ino the truth, especially since she would grill him with question before running off to tell Sakura. Shrugging, he walked around Ino. Oh look, the cafe, he drawled. He led his team into the cafe, finding Asuma-sensei already sitting at a table. Slumping into a chair across from his sensei, he dropped his head onto the table with a dull thud. Ow! I don't want to be awake. I see Shikamaru is thrilled to be having breakfast with the team. Asuma-sensei laughed. Shikamaru grunted as the chairs either side of him scraped against the ground, his teammates sitting down. He was usually not this tired, but he had returned from a mission late last night. The memory of the mission made his heart race in an unpleasant manner, but he was not sure about saying anything in front of Ino. Feeling a finger tap the top of his head, Shikamaru looked up. Choji smiled as he handed the chunin a menu. With a sigh he took it, looking over the breakfast options. Although he didn't have a large sweet tooth, he found himself looking at the more sugary items, hoping they would help wake him up. So why didn't anyone tell me about the group training plans? Shikamaru asked, his chin resting on his palm. We figured you would say no, Ino admitted, sipping her juice. That's still an option, Shikamaru replied. He couldn't bring himself to actually look Ino in the eye at that moment. Shikamaru, all three of you need to work on your Ino Shikacho formation. Asuma-sensei frowned. Are you going to tell us what is wrong? You're grumpier than usual. It's nothing. Shikamaru moved his drink so that the waitress could put his plate down. He noticed that no one spoke until the woman had walked off. Do you miss Naruto? Choji asked, making Shikamaru's knife scratch across the plate as he cut his meal. What? He splattered. Well, he's been gone for almost 2 months now, and you two are close. Choji trailed off with a shrug. If it's not Naruto, what is it? Ino asked before grinning. And who have you kissed? Surely you've kissed someone. Okay, drop that. Shikamaru sighed. I don't think I should say what is bothering me. We're your team, Asuma-sensei reminded him. If something is causing you a problem, you should tell us. Shikamaru chewed his food slowly, feeling 3 sets of eyes staring at him. Finally he swallowed and took a deep breath. When on my mission yesterday I heard something unpleasant. Was it about Naruto? The chunin frowned at Choji before shaking his head. No, what's with you and Naruto? Do you have a thing for him or something? It wasn't that kid, okay? It was, he avoided Ino's eye, Sasuke. Sasuke? The blonde echoed. The look on her face made bile rise in Shikamaru's throat. He turned his gaze onto the table. He knew he shouldn't have said anything. Ino still cared for Sasuke. The only way he could make this situation worse was if Naruto was sitting with them. Though if Naruto was there, at least Choji wouldn't be so determined to talk about her. Apparently Orochimaru was spotted when moving to another safe house. There were 20 people in the group. They were people trading goods with the neighboring village. We ran into the only survivor. It's unclear if Sasuke committed any of the murders, but he definitely did some of the fighting. According to the survivor's description, Kabuto was there too. We found the bodies. Asuma-sensei looked grave, Ino looked mortified, and Choji had paled, pushing his food around. Out of Ino, Choji, and Shikamaru, the bigger boy was the only one who had taken an enemy's life. Looking at him though, Shikamaru could tell that even Choji didn't understand Sasuke's actions. Merchants weren't fighters. Even if they had guards with them, which they hadn't according to the survivor, the guards would not have engaged 3 ninja in combat. They would have tried to get the merchants as far from the enemy as possible. What had happened to those men was not a fight. It was nothing but a senseless, violent massacre. He had officially managed to make his breakfast taste like dirt, but he actually felt a surge of energy. All he could think of was the bloody bodies. He had told Ino that Sasuke might not have committed the murders, but truthfully he had trouble picturing Sasuke as anything but a murderer. It was an odd feeling, thinking of someone he had went to school with, grown up with, as nothing but a killer. However, he had seen firsthand what Sasuke was capable of. Naruto was the closest thing Sasuke had to family anymore, and he had tried to kill her, and had left her in pain. From what Shikamaru had heard, Sasuke had no way of knowing that he left Naruto alive. He probably still didn't know the blonde still breathed. Shikamaru intended to make sure Naruto stayed breathing. Being the first to finish breakfast and to rise from his seat caused his teammates to raise their eyebrows at him. In reply, he simply shrugged. Well, don't we have training to get to? Ino downed the rest of her juice whilst Choji shoveled the last of his eggs into his mouth. Asuma-sensei threw some notes onto the table before standing with his two students. Apparently they were choosing to not linger and see if Shikamaru's motivation would disappear. Together they headed out of the cafe, going in the direction of their usual training ground. Choji, why do you keep mentioning Naruto? Shikamaru asked, frowning at his friend. The bigger boy shifted on his feet. I wanted to talk to Naruto about something, but I didn't get out of the hospital until it was too late. I'll just talk to him when he gets back, but I really wish I could before he left. What did you want to talk to him about? He watched as his friend rubbed the back of his neck, his eyes shifting. Was it really that bad? No, yes. I just need to make amends for something I did years ago. I wasn't really kind to him when he joined our class at the academy. Choji gave his best friend a feeble smile. Most people were cruel to him, Shikamaru reminded, putting his hands into his pockets and staring at Asuma-sensei's back as he walked with Ino. Yeah, but I knew Naruto before the academy, I just didn't recognize him. He had looked different before school. Longer hair? Yeah. How did you dash? Never mind. The point is, he thought I was his friend and I wasn't polite in telling him I had no clue who he was. Choji sighed. I promised myself I would make it up to him though. A pool built at the base of Shikamaru's stomach as his heart plummeted to his knees. No, he thought, no, that can't be right. He looked over at his friend. He was kind and caring. He certainly fitted the description Naruto gave. Looking closer, he tried to see similarities between himself and Choji but failed to think of one. Choji followed his heart, whilst Shikamaru had trouble even hearing his heart with his brain always in control. Shikamaru was too logical to be classed as kind. And he looked nothing like his taller friend. No, it couldn't be him, could it? If he makes up with Naruto and it is him, will Naruto's feelings return? With a heavy sigh, Shikamaru rubbed his forehead. If he was right, there was nothing he could do about it. Oh, Asuma-sensei piped up, looking over his shoulder with a lit cigarette in his mouth. Lady Tsunade wants to see all three of you tomorrow morning, 6 o'clock sharp. Shikamaru groaned deep and heavy, his chin coming to rest on his chest. Great, that means a mission, probably a long one if it's starting so early. And Shikamaru is back. Let's see, Ino looked at her watch. His motivation lasted 4 minutes and 23 seconds. I think that's a new record. Rolling his eyes, Shikamaru scoffed at his teammate's laughter. So, Shikamaru, Ino-san, who have you kissed? Have you even kissed anyone? I thought I told you to drop it. Who I kiss is none of your business. He felt proud that he wasn't blushing. He wasn't embarrassed. He just didn't want everyone knowing about his feelings for Naruto. Admitting to kissing her would mean he had to admit to Ino about his feelings as well. Well, that's a yes, piped up Asuma-sensei. As his teammates laughed again, he groaned, his shoulders sagging. It was definitely too early to be awake. Chapter 23, Sand. Can you repeat that one more time? He watched the Hokage's eye twitch in annoyance. It wasn't that he wasn't listening. He had heard her twice now. He was just certain he had heard her wrong. As the blonde woman opened her mouth to speak again, Shikamaru watched her lips, trying to read the words that his ears were obviously mishearing. I have chosen you to be the ambassador for the Leaf. Your main duty will be the Chunin exams, but you will have to cooperate with the other villages. Lady Tsunade sighed, her mouth becoming a hard line. I swear I'm hearing you wrong. Did you just say I'm the Leaf's ambassador? Yes, she did, Shikamaru, Ino spoke up, giving him an exasperated look. What a drag, he grumbled. Also, why? Lady Tsunade clearly did not like to repeat herself. Her hands tightened under her chin, and her eye twitched again. Our ambassador was killed in the invasion. Your father once had the job, so he can advise you. You have shown intelligence, though apparently it has left you at the moment, and I said so. Now you have a mission to Suna. They are without a leader, so we are helping them when needed, and we are still trying to create a firm alliance between the two villages. Apparently Suna has been fed propaganda about us that we have to help remove from people's minds, and of course the Leaf has reasons to be apprehensive about the Sand Ninjas. You have worked with Sand Ninjas, the Kazekage's children, before without issue. That is another reason I chose you. She handed Choji the mission scroll, obviously realizing Shikamaru's hands were too numb to take them. Now leave! And try to stop being so gloomy. She's right, you know, Choji commented as they left her office. You have been grumpy lately. Shikamaru just grunted. How long is the mission? Choji perused the scroll. It's a week-long mission, but it's a 3-day travel there, then 3 days back. We'll meet at the gate in an hour, Shikamaru ordered. Don't fall asleep, Ino joked. Yeah, keep up the jokes and you will be on night watch the longest. Shikamaru threatened, his hands going to his pockets. He really did wish he could go back to bed. Not because he was tired, or lazy. He had a basic supply kit always ready next to his bedroom door, but given how long they would be gone it would not be enough. Lifting the bag onto his bed, he shifted some of the supplies so that he could fit in more clothing, some more bandages, and weaponry. He didn't have to worry too much, since he could restock at Suna, but he would rather not rely on that, in case something occurred on the journey there. Unfortunately, Shikamaru found himself packing and repacking his bag, each time his heart rate increasing. He hadn't realized he was being noisy until his mother came in, her hand clamping over his as he pulled a shirt out of his bag for the 5th time. She took the item out of his hand, nudging him aside gently and starting to pack his kit. His mother made sure that the most essential items were the easiest to access, that his weapons were secure so they wouldn't cut other items or stab him in the back, and she put a bottle of sunscreen into his pack as well, that she produced from her pocket. Your father told me about your mission earlier. Suna is hotter than the Leaf and doesn't have the trees for cover. Once when your father and I went to the sand village on a mission, your father forgot to use sunscreen. He ended up so sunburnt that he blistered. She put her hand on Shikamaru's cheek, smiling. On top of everything else, you've inherited your father's skin, so make sure you use the sunscreen. Shikamaru nodded, making a mental note to do just that. He did not like the sound of blisters. Admittedly, he was jumpy. He could tell that, and he could tell that his teammates were starting to notice too. Every small noise, every rustle of leaves had him reaching for a kunai, looking for the disturbance. When they made camp, at the edge of the land of fire, he put his back against a tree and breathed deeply. With each intake of breath, he felt his heart rate lowering to an even tempo. It will be fine. We haven't been attacked yet, and even if we were, there is no specific group that is targeting us, so the chance of us fighting strong opponents is unlikely. Also, this is the Ino Shikacho group. I know how this team works. I know Ino and Choji's moves to the extent that I know my own. This mission is not the same. The only thing that's the same is that I'm team leader again. A small part of him told him that that element was enough. That he was the defining factor for failure. He knew that if he let that thought rule him, then it would be harmful to the mission. By the time they were in sight of Suna, he had succeeded in pushing the thought from his mind. They had reached their destination with only one injury. Ino had spun when she heard something, which turned out to be a sand rat, and had ended up tumbling down a dune, scratching her knee on a rock. Other than that, the mission so far had been a success, helping to elevate Shikamaru's stress. He had discovered something too. Something he hadn't known about himself. He hated sand. The reason? It was everywhere. And he meant everywhere. He had inhaled enough of the grains that he could snort out an impressive sandcastle. He could feel it in between his toes, clinging to the sweat under his armpits, even nuzzled in his teeth. He cringed to think where else it had gone. Gaara must have been a formidable ninja if he could infiltrate places like sand could infiltrate the crevices of the human body. Shikamaru found himself kicking mounds of sand as he walked to gain the satisfaction of revenge. His toes were already covered in sand, so it wasn't doing any more damage to him. He could never live in Suna. The village was made of sand. Choji enjoyed the thought of living in a giant sandcastle, but Shikamaru found himself having to fight the urge to kick the walls like they were sand mounds. He was aware that it was hardened sand, as solid as concrete, but didn't cause the same moisture issue. Also, he didn't want the sand village mistaking it for an attack by the leaf village. He chuckled at the thought of what they would say though. That leaf ninja is attacking us, by kicking the walls and hurting his foot. I don't think this was a well thought out attack. Tamari and Kankuro met them just inside the fortress wall. They looked the same as the last time he had seen them. Tamari had her fan strapped to her back and Kankuro wore his purple war paint and black cat hood. However, they held themselves differently. It was very clear that this was their home. They were relaxed, looking at the three leaf ninjas who were observing their surroundings with fascination and curiosity. Admittedly, the place was impressive. It was well fortified with a wall around the entire village, higher than the leaf village's wall and thicker too. The gate was a part of the wall that slid open, forcing the arrivals to walk down a sand valley with ninjas lining the sides. Shikamaru mused over how one would infiltrate Suna, coming up with strategies. The only things he could think of that had any hope of succeeding were subterfuge, or an aerial attack. The first wouldn't work, for surly Suna had some way of detecting such things in people as they tried to get into secure locations, and the aerial attack would be near impossible on a large scale since few ninja had such jutsus. In short, Shikamaru found the village impressively fortified. After the invasion, he was thinking the leaf should look towards Suna for inspiration in that area. Perhaps that was one thing he could convince them to trade with, though he would have to think of something Suna needed of equal value. When they entered their peace talks, he discovered that there was something the Sand Village found commendable about the leaf enough to ask about. Suna had noticed how many candidates the Leaf Village had in the Chunin exams. On top of that, Shikamaru discovered that the Kankuro and Tamari were older than all the Leaf ninjas that moved into the final round. He couldn't help but send a boastful smirk in Tamari's direction at that piece of information. The Sand Village wanted teaching lessons from the Leaf since the Sand had a surprisingly low graduation rating. That was not a piece of information they wanted to divulge, but knew they had to in order to nurture the trust between the two villages. In return, Shikamaru admitted that their fortifications could use strengthening. Not that I need to tell you all that, he half joked, smirking so that they knew he wasn't being cynical, or at least not too cynical. He acknowledged that both villages had been plagued by the Sound. One thing that didn't sit comfortably with him was that the Elders of the Sand appeared to be the instigators of the alliance with the Sound and the invasion. With the Kazekage dead, the Sand was ruling by committee, which left the possibility that they would sour the village people to the alliance with the Leaf. However, at the moment the alliance was the best thing for the Sand. It didn't take much for Shikamaru to realize the invasion was done out of desperation. Although the village was impressive, he had noticed the poverty that leaked into areas. The Leaf had a 0 homeless rating and poverty. The Sand needed the Leaf's help, otherwise they would collapse in on themselves. After a week they had managed to outline the alliance between the two villages. Within the next 2 years poverty would lower in the Sand and the fortifications in the Leaf would be reinforced. On top of that, the Leaf was going to start training Chunins from Suna in their teaching methods. At the end of the week, the one thing Shikamaru knew for certain was that he would be making a lot of trips to Suna over the next few years. Tamari and Kankuro had become less annoying over the week, and he would almost call them friends. They weren't friends in the sense that Choji or Naruto were. They were more like Ino, annoying and troublesome, but friends nevertheless. Gaara was somewhat of a different story. Shikamaru could see the change Naruto had invoked in the redhead, and he had been told by Kankuro that it was Naruto who had caused it, but Shikamaru still couldn't get over the fear he had felt when facing Gaara. He did try to give the new Gaara a chance, since he had been kind enough to inform Shikamaru that Naruto was still alive when he was distraught. Although he knew little about the old Gaara, the new Gaara was weird. He sat and stared at Shikamaru for long periods of time, which unnerved the Chunin. It wasn't until the day before he was to leave that Gaara finally spoke in his presence. Shikamaru had been surprised when Gaara had sat across from him before calming, asking how the dark-haired boy would go about fixing issues within Suna. For hours the two discussed different strategies, Shikamaru finally finding someone his own age that rivaled his intelligence. When Shikamaru's throat started to hurt, Gaara started to fidget. "Do you believe that someone like me could be trusted, or even respected, cared for by others?" "Naruto believes so, but I still have my doubts." For a moment it crossed Shikamaru's mind that Gaara had purposely left out that Naruto and he had the same status, which protected Naruto. Shikamaru had to respect him for that, but he felt a crawling in his stomach when he realized what a tight bond the two had. Yes, Shikamaru answered without bothering to mull over his answer. As long as the person holding the demon is a kind, caring person, worthy of trust and love, I believe that they can succeed in receiving it. The person you were in the Chunin exams didn't allow for people to get close to you, and that person, that version of you, would never know friendship or love because you weren't allowing it anywhere near you. Anyone with eyes could see that your siblings love you, but you clearly couldn't. Gaara nodded, a ghost of a smile appearing on his face, shocking Shikamaru. I can see why Naruto classes you as a highly regarded precious person. At Shikamaru's expression, Gaara raised a hairless eyebrow. Even I could see that when you both confronted me. Before he could ask any questions, Gaara stood and walked off, passing Kankuro in the doorway. What was that about? The puppet master asked, giving Shikamaru a hard look. He wanted my opinion of affairs in Suna. The Chunin shrugged. Kankuro gave him a skeptical look before holding out a scroll for him. This came for you from the leaf. Thanking him, Shikamaru looked the scroll and broke the seal. Reading it through, he sighed, getting up to find his teammates. There was a mission a day's journey from Suna. It was decided that it would be quicker to send them to deal with it, since it was a 4-day journey for any team leaving from the leaf. It added at least 2 days onto their journey home though, but there was nothing he could do about it. He debriefed Ino and Choji on the fact that there was a creature terrorizing a small village. The people who asked for help believed it to be a summoning creature, though there was no proof that it was a creature like that. Either way, it had attacked and hospitalized half a dozen people, destroyed 2 stores, and killed numerous livestock. It took them a day and a half to reach the village thanks to a sandstorm. Just another reason for him to hate sand. When they finally reached the village, all he wanted to do was have a shower and sleep, but instead he had to find the leader of the village so that they could get information of the creature. It took them 10 minutes to find a stringy-looking man with small, cloudy, blue eyes and his arm in a cast. Oh, you're from the leaf? He commented in surprise, looking at their forehead protectors, though only Choji wore his on his head. They had told him twice, but only the sight of their forehead protectors convinced him. You're here for the summoning creature? Though the other ninjas said it wasn't a summoning creature. The other ninjas? Ino asked, frowning at the man. When the man's eyes drifted off, clearly not listening, she snapped her fingers. What about the other ninjas? Oh, 2 leaf ninjas were passing through and decided to deal with the creature for us. They told me to give you the money as well as these letters. It was mainly the little one who fought the creature. But then there was another creature, more vicious, that put the bigger ninja in the hospital for a bit. I don't know what happened, but it was a mess. They dealt with the first creature the day after we sent a runner to the leaf, but we figured there was no point in sending the runner back. You actually beat her here anyway. The big ninja promised that the other creature was dealt with too and had nothing to do with the first mission, so that one was free of charge. Out of his pocket he pulled a money purse, a scroll, and an envelope. Well, these are for you, I suppose? Shikamaru took the bundle from the man, slipping the money into his pouch before looking at the scroll. It was clearly a mission report. The envelope, however, wasn't. And what's more, it had his name on it in messy writing. Snapping his gaze back to the man, he gave a whistle to get the man's attention. What did the 2 ninjas look like? His heart was pounding so badly that he worried he would miss the man's answer. Oh, well, the big one was tall and had long white hair. He was a Sannin too. The little one was blonde and loud. They left yesterday. The man waved his non-injured hand dismissively before wandering off. Let's go find a hotel to stay in for the night. I want a shower, Ino suggested, leading the way into what looked like the shopping district. If it wasn't for the sandstorm, we might have seen Naruto. And another reason to hate sand. Maybe this was revenge for kicking it. It took all Shikamaru's willpower to not rip open the letter in front of Choji and Ino as they walked. Instead, he put it in his back pouch with the mission report, a small smile on his face. As his team started towards a hotel that they could stay in for the night, he kept pressing his hand to his pouch, just to make sure the letter was still there. When he had settled into his and Choji's room and Choji had gone for a shower, he pulled the letter out and opened it. Naruto's handwriting was messy, there were a number of words crossed out and respelled, and his grammar was poor. Shikamaru read over it twice before his brain started to correct the writing for him. Hey Shikamaru. When we found out your team was the one collecting our report, Pervisage suggested I write a letter for you guys. I've never actually written a letter before, so I don't know what I'm meant to do. I can't tell you where we are going, in case this doesn't actually reach you. But training is going good. I'm a little bored. I wish I had asked you to teach me that board game you play so that I would have something to do when Pervisage is writing. It could have been fun, hanging out and learning a new game. Maybe we can do that when I get back. I know I won't be back for 2 years and it's a bit far away to make plans, so I'm not expecting you to agree. Though you can't actually get in contact with me, so I won't know if you agree anyway. Also, my mission report from today, I fought a bear. A giant bear. It smelt. I won. Well, goodbye? Though we've already said goodbye, and it was a good goodbye. I mean better than my letter version, 'cause I suck at letters. I'm just going to stop writing. Bye. Naruto. He found himself laughing, though he couldn't pinpoint exactly what in the letter he found so amusing. The letter was just Naruto. He hadn't realized how much he missed that weird, awkward, loud kid until he had something in his hands reminding him of her. He scanned the part about their goodbye over and over, trying to dig out some emotions behind it. At least it didn't appear as though Naruto hated the kiss. Seeing as he hadn't known what he was doing, or how Naruto felt about him, there had been the chance Naruto would be disgusted by the kiss. After the 10th time reading over the letter, Shikamaru decided that he should just be thrilled that Naruto wrote to him. She hadn't written to Choji even though she knew him well. She only wrote to him. Grinning, he carefully folded the letter back up and put it in his pack, making sure it was safe just as Choji came out of the shower. What are you smiling about? Huh? Shikamaru looked over to his friend, his smile refusing to budge. Nothing. I'm just happy I can have a shower now. Fair enough. Walking in the desert can make you feel dirty. I wonder what that creature was though. Choji asked absent-mindedly, walking over to his bed. A bear. A giant, smelly one. Even having to brush sand out from his teeth yet again didn't remove the grin he wore. He made sure to make a mental note that in 2 years he had to teach Naruto how to play shogi. He was going to hold the blonde to it, even if it was just because he greedily wanted the time with Naruto. Chapter 24, Idiot. He could hear the distinct sound of feet shuffling along his wooden floor. The sound didn't fit either of his teammates, his sensei, or his parents. Turning over with a groan, he peeked open his eyes. The light that filled the room was luminescent. The floor tilted dramatically before righting itself. Standing next to his bed was Naruto. Her hair was longer, reaching past her shoulder blades, and she wore an outfit similar to Ino's. Her top was an orange version of Ino's, which clashed heavily with her hair, and orange pants, sitting on her hips and hugging her form. You're back? He asked, although the answer was obvious. Move over, Naruto demanded, nudging Shikamaru's side. Once there was space on the bed for her, she flopped down, bouncing once before she settled. Turning her head to look at the dark-haired boy, she smiled. How's it been going? Shikamaru went to reply only to snort. Over 2 years and that's what you have to say? Naruto shrugged, letting Shikamaru wrap his arm around her waist and put his face in the crook of her neck as she turned her body to face him. I've been missing you, you idiot! He muttered into her neck. Her soft hair and skin rubbed against his face. She smelt of ramen, the forest, and something else that was uniquely Naruto and feminine at the same time. The smell that had started it all. I've spent over 2 years wondering what you thought of our kiss and worried that you wouldn't come back. Well, I'm back. Naruto's hand slid over Shikamaru's waist, pulling them closer. And as for the kiss, why do you think I came here the moment I got back? To tell me I really should have brushed my teeth? He felt Naruto's laugh vibrate through her throat and turned his head, kissing the path it took. Naruto tilted her head down, allowing Shikamaru to skim her lips with his. He sighed against her lips, their noses brushing. You're not my Naruto, are you? She still hasn't returned. He swallowed the lump in his throat. Scenario after scenario ran through his mind every night when he thought of why Naruto hadn't returned. Each morning he woke to hope she was back. I'm starting to think my Naruto isn't coming back. I'm here though, fake Naruto reminded him, rubbing his back. She moved forward, brushing her lips against his. Shikamaru turned his head away with a sigh. It's not the same though. You're just a shadow of the real thing. I don't even know what Naruto looks like now. As he spoke, the fake Naruto dimmed and disappeared. Opening his eyes, Shikamaru looked at his clock. It was a little before 7, and he knew he had to meet Tamari by 7:30 for their meeting. Half-heartedly, he dragged himself out of bed and started dressing, trying not to hope that Naruto would return today. He was starting to believe it was a lost cause. Naruto was never going to return to the Leaf. Even though he was early to meet Tamari, he found her standing out the front of the cafe with her arms crossed. He wondered for a moment what he had done to annoy her when he hadn't even arrived yet, but then he noticed a man talking to Tamari. The man had a sleazy smile and hadn't looked in Tamari's face the whole time Shikamaru had been observing them. He would have rushed over to help Tamari if he wasn't in a disheartened mood, and if he didn't know Tamari. As he watched, the blonde clenched her fist, pulled back, and punched the man so hard in the stomach that spit flew out of his mouth. The man crumbled to the ground, cradling his stomach as he groaned. Tamari spotted Shikamaru when she looked up from her victim, and gave him a smirk, turning to walk into the cafe. Shikamaru stepped over the man on the ground to follow her in, finding her already seated at a table for 4. From her pouch she pulled out a summoning scroll, bringing forth the documents they needed. Sitting down, he ordered a coffee, feeling as though he would need it. He really needed a solid night's sleep. Unfortunately, the coffee didn't help him listen to Tamari, as she went over what they had already agreed on for the next Chunin exams. The information was somewhere in the back of his mind, but it failed to come forth at that moment. Shikamaru! Tamari snapped, slamming her hand down on the table, rattling Shikamaru's second empty cup of coffee. Are you listening? Sorry. He pushed his cup aside with a sigh. I haven't been sleeping well lately. That's hard to believe, since it's all you seem to do. Tamari put aside the document she had been reading off, fixing the mail with a hard stare. I know. I miss my naps. But now, I end up having the same type of dreams. He dropped his head onto the table, a bang ringing out when his forehead made contact. Ouch. Are you going to tell me what dreams you've been having, or are you going to keep wallowing? He's not back, Shikamaru said in a voice that was definitely not Winnie. No way in hell. Who? Tamari's question went ignored. He said he'd be gone for 2 years. That was 6 months ago. What's gone wrong? Shikamaru lifted his head to look at the blonde woman. His shoulders still sagged. You don't think he's dead, do you, or badly injured? Tamari sighed, shaking her head at him. You're this strung out over Naruto being late home? I'm sure he's fine. When she continued to get a sorrowful look, she cracked an amused smile. What, are you in love with that idiot or something? Shikamaru sat up as though his shoulders had been wrenched back. What? How? Why would you ask that? That's not an answer. Shikamaru, are you in love with Naruto? When Shikamaru simply looked away, a blush tinting his cheeks, she took a deep breath. Okay, stop. Yes. Shikamaru yelped. He had been on the receiving end of Tamari's public embarrassment. If you didn't give the answer to a personal question, she shouted it for everyone to hear. He blamed Kankuro for her coming up with that trick. Yes, alright? I love the knucklehead. He's unpredictable, irrational, and illogical. Every time I think I have him figured out, he does something else I never expected. He's kind-hearted, caring, loyal, and loving when he has every reason not to be. Wow, Tamari laughed. You really do have it bad. But Naruto is a strong kid, he'll be fine, and I'm sure he has a reason for being late. Does he know that you love him? No, though I am. He scratched the back of his head, looking at the table as he turned red. I kissed him before he left, so he knows I have feelings for him. You know, I didn't think Naruto was your type. At the raised eyebrows she received, she went on. Well, he's a bit of a rash hothead. Looking him over, she chuckled. That's probably his appeal, though. He keeps your strategic brain on its toes. Shikamaru smiled. I just wish that he would come home. Well, we have to go show our progress to Lady Tsunade anyway, so why don't we ask her if she has any information whilst we're at it? Tamari gathered up the reports and documents that Shikamaru had barely glanced at. Throwing some money on the table to pay for their drinks, the dark-haired boy followed Tamari out of the cafe, trying not to run. Tamari, thankfully, walked quickly towards the Hokage's office. When they reached her door, the blonde looked at Shikamaru expectantly, making him knock. They opened the door when given permission. He noticed Tsunade first, with Shizen standing next to her desk like usual. Hey, Shikamaru, Tamari, Sakura explained, drawing his attention as she waved. Look what the cat dragged in. Shikamaru looked at the blonde Sakura pointed at. They were an odd figure. Snug, female, orange pants that sat well on her hips and a really baggy jacket that made their torso look boxy and masculine, and spiky, blonde hair that at most reached their chin. For a moment his brain couldn't tell if he was seeing a boy or a girl. Then he noticed the bright blue eyes staring at him timidly, as though waiting for him to make the first move. Is that? He found himself saying out loud. It is! He exclaimed with a wide smile, standing up straighter. Naruto, it's you! Naruto visibly brightened at being recognized. Hey, Shikamaru! Well. Shikamaru found himself half holding out his hand, wondering what it wanted to do as Naruto walked closer. You're back, huh? The blonde stopped in front of him, putting her hands behind her head. Shikamaru realized that, given that Naruto hadn't returned looked as feminine as he expected, it might be an indication that Naruto was in actuality a male. Truthfully, he didn't care, though he did want an answer simply to quench his curiosity. Yeah, got back today. Look at you! He took this chance to rake his gaze over Naruto's form again, ignoring Tamari's smug look. Who would believe you were the same, idiotic? Well, I mean to say you've changed, haven't you? Naruto grinned, chuckling. It may have been the lighting, but Shikamaru could have sworn the blonde was blushing. Her voice was still bordering between male and female, unlike Shikamaru's that had broken to be deeper, though not as deep as his father's. Naruto's voice was almost like Tamari's. Although they sounded different, neither of them were particularly high-pitched for a female. Sakura drew them out of their staring contest by waving her hand. He hasn't changed at all. I didn't think so, Shikamaru chuckled. Naruto's shoulders collapsed. Give me a break, Sakura. I'm glad you haven't, Shikamaru said to Naruto as Lady Tsunade laughed at their interactions. He doubted anyone but Naruto heard what he said, but she smiled widely, so he didn't care who heard. Hey, wait, does this mean you're my opponent, Shikamaru? Opponent? What are you talking about? I just came over here to drop off some paperwork. And to scream at Lady Tsunade to tell me where you were, he thought, though he wasn't going to verbalize that. Oh, Naruto said, looking disappointed. Well, if it's not you, then is it? Naruto turned her gaze onto Tamari, looking confused. Moving closer to the other blonde, Naruto put on a half-joking voice. What's your name again? You don't remember me? Tamari snapped, sounding highly offended. Naruto, Lady Tsunade spoke up, saving Naruto from Tamari's vengeance. Tamari gave Shikamaru an exasperated look behind Naruto's back, probably wondering how he could be attracted to someone so oblivious. Truthfully, he was too busy fighting the urge to kiss Naruto now to pay much attention to his friend. You won't find your opponent in here. He's out there. Lady Tsunade pointed out the window. Naruto walked over to the window, opening it and leaning out. The dark-haired boy found his eyes traveling down Naruto's bent form. Those pants fit her well. Busted pervert. Tamari whispered in his ear, making his ear feel sweaty from her hot breath. What are you talking about? He whispered back, his neck heating at the thought of what it could be. You were staring at Naruto's ass. Don't bother to deny it. I swear all the men in the leaf are perverts. Tamari grinned evilly, realizing how much leverage she had when Shikamaru shushed her. You live with Kankuro and you call me a pervert? Shikamaru tried to look at her indignantly, but his blushing face probably took away the effect. He doesn't stare at his friends behind. Thankfully, Naruto had climbed out the window to talk to her opponent, who sounded like Kakashi-sensei, and everyone else was paying the two out the window attention. This meant that Shikamaru didn't have to worry about anyone overhearing their conversation. Of all the people to find out about Shikamaru's feelings, it had to be Tamari. Shikamaru noticed that Jiraiya the sage was giving him an odd look. For a moment he feared the man had seen the young Chunin staring, or had overheard the conversation. However, the expression didn't fit. He couldn't quite work it out. Jiraiya was frowning, but had a small, almost wistful smile on his face. Pulling himself out of his evaluation of Jiraiya, Shikamaru watched Naruto jump back through the window as Kakashi-sensei explained how he would be fighting both Sakura and Naruto to determine their future status. Their future status. It was clear to him what Kakashi and Lady Tsunade meant by determining Sakura's and Naruto's status. They wanted to know if the two had potential to take over the title of Sannin, or if their training was for nothing. Naruto might also jump to Chunin or Jonin without taking the exams. He doubted Lady Tsunade would do that, for no other reason than she got to taunt Naruto the genin. When Kakashi-sensei made excuses to disappear, Shikamaru sighed. He can't wait to read that book. Both of Kakashi-sensei's students agreed with him. Though Naruto appeared angry, it looked to Shikamaru that his anger was half-hearted. Tamari gave Lady Tsunade the documents they had drafted before they followed Sakura and Naruto out of Hokage Tower. Kakashi-sensei, Naruto grumbled, I'm sorry I ever gave it to him. That stupid book is more important to him than our training. Shikamaru was impressed to see that Naruto took her training so seriously, and yet there was something about the way Naruto spoke that didn't quite sit with him. There's no accounting for taste. At least now we have time to discuss strategy. Sakura gave Naruto a stern look, as though she expected the blonde to try and get out of planning. Tamari elbowed Shikamaru discreetly, trying to get him to speed up and walk with Naruto. However, before he could send her a glare, Naruto moved back to them. Putting her back to Tamari, she shielded her mouth, giving Shikamaru a cheeky smile. So, are you two going out or what? She chuckled. For a moment Shikamaru thought Naruto was addressing the kiss incident, but when it registered in his mind what the blonde actually said, he tried not to look shocked and disgusted. Tamari was nice, but he hadn't thought of her like that at all. His thoughts had been too heavily consumed with thoughts of Naruto. Not even close, idiot. It was good to feel surprised by Naruto again, but he finally realized what Jiraiya's expression had meant. Too much time had passed, and clearly Naruto doubted Shikamaru's affections. Or perhaps someone else had caught Naruto's attention, and that was why Jiraiya had looked at Shikamaru with so much pity. You've got to be joking, Tamari added. Like I would ever even. The Chunin exams are about to start. I've been busy running back and forth between your village and mine getting things ready for them. Yeah, that's right, and I'm her escort. Shikamaru's voice showed how boring he found his job. It's a drag, and don't ask how it happened, but I've been put in charge of organizing the Chunin exams. Naruto's eyes lost some of their shine. The Chunin exams, huh? Man, that takes me back. Not wanting Naruto to dwell, Shikamaru scratched the back of his neck. Yeah, well, speaking of which, what are you going to do, Naruto? About what? What do you mean? With a chuckle he explained. What do you think about the Chunin exams? You're the only one in our year who isn't a Chunin. Everyone is but you. He regretted bringing it up when Naruto's face fell even further. Next moment the woman screamed and asked her teammate if it was true. Even so, Shikamaru couldn't help but make it worse, telling her how Tamari, Kankuro, and Niji had become Jonins. Truthfully, he had missed Naruto's comical reactions. The fact that Naruto instantly asked about Gaara next hurt. He tried not to flinch, but the way Tamari looked at him out of the corner of her eye made him think he had failed. Tamari gleefully told him how Gaara had become Kazekage. She added that someone had inspired Gaara to work hard for it. It looked as though that was the last straw for Naruto, who looked highly depressed. So Gaara was made Kazekage. Her fist tightened, and then she smiled. That's great. Well, I'm not about to be outdone by him. Her words made Shikamaru smile. She hadn't changed. I'm still going to be Hokage one day. Just you wait, Gaara. Her way of handling the information was different than the younger self. Young Naruto would have yelled about how unfair it was that everyone was promoted whilst she was gone, but now she saw it as a challenge. We have to plan more of the Chunin exams, but it was good seeing you. Shikamaru paused, realizing that Sakura and Tamari were watching the two, though clearly for two different reasons. Tamari was waiting for Shikamaru to do something embarrassing. Sakura was just waiting. Instead of doing something to give Tamari more leverage, he clasped Naruto on the shoulder, perhaps closer to her neck than he would have with others, but he couldn't stop himself. I'm glad you're back. I'll see you later. Yeah, Tamari piped up, smiling in a way that filled the male with dread. Maybe you and Shikamaru could catch up after your fight with Kakashi. I'm sure Shikamaru would be willing to buy you dinner. Before Tamari could make further promises for him, he grabbed her arm. Bye, Naruto, good luck with your fight. With that and a final, lazy wave, he dragged the sniggering woman away from the team's 7 members. Did you have to? Well, considering you are in love with him, I expected you to make some type of move. Tamari shrugged her arm out of Shikamaru's hold. Did you chicken out cause we were there? No, clearly Naruto either didn't think my feelings were genuine or has moved on. I just need to find out which. And I don't think Naruto responds well to aggressive actions. He prefers subtle, which works well for me. Tamari looked thoughtful for a moment. So you had been working on it for a while before the idiot left? With a sigh, Shikamaru admitted, longer than I realized. And now it looks like I might have to start all over again. Chapter 25, Sensory Chakra. Asuma-sensei had found him shortly after Tamari had left to return to her hotel room. He had Choji and Ino in tow and was grinning widely. Shikamaru put his hands in his pockets, waiting to find out why his sensei was smiling the way he was. It tended to end up badly for him, but he couldn't walk away from his sensei. Though he was tempted to and instead find out if Naruto was finished with her fight. So I spoke with Lady Tsunade, Asuma-sensei started, his smile stretching, which Shikamaru did not think was possible. She told me that Naruto was back and that he and Sakura were going to fight Kakashi to test their skills. Since they are the only, living, students of 2 of the 3 Sanins, I thought it would be good for you 3 to observe the fight. I have already cleared it with Lady Tsunade, though she requested that our presence goes unknown. They arrived in time to hear Kakashi-sensei explain that the 2 had to get 2 bells off their sensei. It was also made clear that Sakura and Naruto had to be willing to kill Kakashi-sensei to get the bells tied to his hip. They had until the next sunrise. Hiding up in the trees, the 4 ninjas watched as Kakashi-sensei put away his perverted book, and Naruto asked if he would be reading it throughout the fight. The blonde got a gleam in her eye when she heard that Kakashi-sensei hadn't finished the book. He's using his Sharingan, Choji commented with a look of disbelief as the white-haired sensei lifted his forehead protector off his eye. This is going to be a serious fight. To no one's surprise, it was Naruto who made the first move by throwing shuriken at Kakashi-sensei, who ducked and threw some back. When Naruto jumped away, he threw some more. Shikamaru had to ground his feet, otherwise he was going to pull Naruto out of the way. She was trapped, having to follow the path her jump had created for her. However, she summoned a shadow clone midair to throw her out of the way. Fast thinking, complimented Ino. The moment she landed, she turned the clone into a giant shuriken, but Kakashi-sensei was too quick and caught Naruto's hand, another going to the back of her head. That'll be enough of that, the copy ninja commented. I expected more off Naruto, truthfully. Choji crossed his arms as Shikamaru leant against the tree trunk, waiting for the next move. Look! Commanded the strategist. Naruto had appeared behind Kakashi, with a kunai to his back. Normally there was a way to tell the difference between the original and the clone if you knew the person well enough, and yet, with Naruto, Shikamaru was never able to tell, and it appeared Kakashi-sensei couldn't either. He wondered for a moment if Naruto ever became confused about who the real one was, though he doubted that was possible. If anyone was able to forget, it would be Naruto, however. It was only Chakra that held Team 10 to the tree branch they stood on after Sakura's monster punch. The ground erupted under her fist, and their trees shook violently. They were, of course, aware that she could do such a thing. Ino even had some skill for ground-shattering punches. However, Naruto's expression proved that she had had no idea. A revealed Kakashi-sensei also looked stunned. Kakashi-sensei clearly decided it was his turn to attack. He went straight past Sakura, aiming for Naruto. The blonde was ready for the elite Jonin, and blocked his first attack before countering with a blow to the stomach. Her punch missed its target but still grazed Kakashi-sensei's side, causing him to move out of Naruto's reach and swing a kick. Naruto dodged, but Kakashi-sensei followed through with a low kick, sweeping at the blonde's legs. Without hesitation, Naruto pushed back on her feet, flipping into the air with a well-aimed kick to Kakashi-sensei's chin. The blonde landed on her hands, quickly flipping onto her feet again. The moment Kakashi-sensei had recovered, he received one quick smirk off Naruto before he charged the blonde again. All the while Sakura stood back and watched as the two clashed head-on. The genin was meeting the elite Jonin step for step, hit for hit. It was hard to tell if Kakashi-sensei was holding back or if Naruto had simply improved that much. "Why is Kakashi-sensei only attacking Naruto?" Ino asked, frowning down at her rival. "Sakura is standing right there." If he went for Sakura instead of Naruto, that meant risking being hit by her incredible punch and turning his back on Naruto. One thing you never do when fighting Naruto is turn your back on the idiot. "Why is that, Shikamaru?" Asuma-sensei asked. Turning his gaze onto his team, Shikamaru smirked. "'Cause I can't predict Naruto." The surprised looks on their faces were amusing. "Not once have I been able to predict Naruto and his movements. When I thought I had him figured out, he learnt a new technique, or would come out with something insane to do." So Kakashi-sensei was smart to attack Naruto first, especially after what happened at the start of this fight. A guttural yell drew their attention back to the fight. They watched as Sakura charged in, attempting to punch Kakashi-sensei. Unfortunately, her yell had given away her intentions. Their sensei attempted to move Naruto into the line of the punch, but the blonde moved out of his range. Kakashi-sensei caught Sakura's arm, throwing her towards a tree at a fast speed. She was bound to break at least one bone on impact. Naruto charged at Kakashi-sensei, forcing the man to block a punch to the face, then the gut. As the blonde was locked in a double block, staring her sensei down, she twisted her hips sharply. Somehow Sakura's trajectory slowed, allowing her to hit the tree trunk with a soft oof. Shikamaru had been so focused on trying to work out why Naruto had snapped her hips the way she had that he almost missed how Sakura had slowed before hitting the tree. As Sakura picked herself off the ground, looking somewhat dazed, Naruto turned her feet to the left without lifting them off the ground. Kakashi-sensei looked as though he tried to lift his foot for a kick with no success. Asuma-sensei's voice rumbled. Kakashi-sensei looked stunned before Naruto aimed a kick at his head, twisting her body so that she could reach for the bells. Instantly her sensei started making hand signs and disappeared. Sakura looked around, trying to judge where Kakashi-sensei had went like the last time. Naruto stood still, taking deep breaths. As he watched, Shikamaru felt a warmth spread over him and a light pressure run through his chest. The pressure moved over his shoulders and down his arms, relaxing and energizing him at the same time. Half frowning down at Naruto, he noticed the blonde look in his direction out of the corner of her eye before she smirked and turned to Sakura. The smirk twisted his insides in a way Shikamaru found he enjoyed. "Do you know where Kakashi-sensei is?" she asked as she discreetly pointed towards the opposite side of the battlefield. After she gave Sakura an amused smile, the pinkette understood what she was being told. With a nod, Sakura charged and made another crater in the ground, surprising Kakashi-sensei. The white-haired man quickly disappeared into the forest, making his two students go into hiding as well instead of staying out in the open. Very impressive. Asuma-sensei's words drew the attention of his three students, since they wouldn't see any more fighting until there actually was fighting to see. "Do any of you know what Naruto just did?" When he received 3 confused looks and 3 shakes of the head, he smiled. The reason Sakura didn't get hurt, the reason Kakashi couldn't move, and how Naruto knew where Kakashi was hiding are all connected. There are few in the entire ninja world with enough chakra to do what Naruto did at that scale. Firstly, he flooded the area with his chakra to find Kakashi, and the other 2, well, I'm not sure what he did, but I know it has to do with chakra control. It's not that difficult to work out. All four on the branch jumped so violently they nearly fell. Looking over, Shikamaru blushed deeply when he noticed how closely he was standing next to Naruto. Their chests were nearly touching and Naruto's breath brushed against Shikamaru's cheek. The blonde appeared unfazed by their proximity as she leant against the thick tree trunk casually. "Did you know we have a lemon tree?" she casually asked, holding out a ripe lemon. "Does this make you laugh now?" Shikamaru joked as he took the lemon from Naruto's hand. He could have face-palmed at his own lame joke, but it was the first thing that came to his mind. "If you want me to be." Naruto smiled with a shrug. Swallowing thickly, Shikamaru tried to take control of the heat rising in his face. He doubted Naruto meant it to sound the way it did to his ears. "It was you that I felt a minute ago. You were sensing us." Naruto nodded at Shikamaru's statement. When Naruto beckoned him closer, he moved without thinking, letting her whisper into his ear. "By the way, Kakashi is coming this way. You might want to move." Turning her gaze onto the others, she smiled. "As for the thing with Sakura and Kakashi-sensei," asked Shikamaru. "He's the one who inspired the move I used." With a flick of her fingers as a wave, Naruto jumped off the branch, disappearing on her way down. It didn't appear that it was a shadow clone being dispelled, but she was definitely out of sight when she shouldn't have been. Shikamaru relayed to his team that they should move to another tree, making sure that Kakashi-sensei wouldn't be able to overhear. If he hadn't caught on to Naruto's sensing abilities, then it was an advantage for the blonde. "What did he mean by you inspired the technique?" Choji asked once they had moved a safe distance away. The sun was starting to lower, casting the larger boy into shadows. Looking at the low light that played over Choji's face, Shikamaru realized what Naruto meant and couldn't help but smile broadly. "I showed Naruto how my shadow possession works, and taught him how to throw it off. Apparently he applied it to his chakra sensing. When he threw my shadow possession off him, he kinda grabbed me with his chakra. He turned my chakra into his without me knowing. I guess that's what he did back there too." "I doubt it." Asuma-sensei frowned, giving Shikamaru an uncomfortable look. No one would have trained him to do that, since often ninjas find it uncomfortable to have their chakra mingled with another. It's not something you do, unless you are really close to the person or don't know you're doing it. He probably uses a technique more closely connected to your shadow strangle than with what he did with you. Thinking over what his sensei said, Shikamaru realized he wasn't comfortable with the thought of Sakura or Kakashi-sensei feeling Naruto's chakra like he had. Yet that was what Naruto had done to him to show she knew he was present. Although, she may have done so simply because he had experienced it before. "You might be right," Shikamaru agreed, "though we won't know unless we ask Naruto. I'll do it next time I talk to him." The fighting started again with Naruto drawing Kakashi-sensei out of his hiding spot, which was right under the tree Team 10 had been in moments before. Kakashi-sensei took the opportunity to test out his student's taijutsu, though he had tested Naruto's ability in that area well already. After a few missed hits from Kakashi-sensei, Naruto moved out of the way so Sakura could show her abilities. After she took down the tree Team 10 had been on with one punch, she was winded, so Naruto jumped in with shadow clones. That was when Shikamaru realized Naruto let her shadow clones take a beating. Looking around, he spotted Naruto not too far ahead of them, crouched in a bush. He elbowed Choji, pointing at the blonde. Naruto uses his clones to survey the area and look for an opening. "Fantastic." Choji looked at him with a small smile. Naruto really has grown, became smarter. He might keep you on your toes even more than before. "What's the hidden leaf jutsu, 1,000 years of death?" Ino asked when Naruto yelled it, and Kakashi-sensei looked terrified. "You don't want to know," Asuma-sensei muttered, looking pale. His hands appeared to be creeping behind his body. "I bet it's Kakashi's own fault that the kid knows that jutsu." Kakashi-sensei was able to dodge the jutsu, but he was definitely more sluggish and losing energy from having to jump so high so quickly, followed by dodging Sakura, who had seen the opportunity Naruto gave her. It was getting darker, but it didn't look as though the Jonin was going to be able to keep up his fight for much longer. Naruto looked fine and Sakura wasn't breathing too heavily. With a cocky smile, Naruto flooded the area with clones, more than Shikamaru could count. "Is there a point to so many clones?" Kakashi-sensei is taking them out pretty easily. Ino sat down on the branch, making herself comfortable without taking her eyes off the fight. The clones aren't being used to cause damage onto Kakashi-sensei. They are used to exhaust him and to distract him from Sakura. Shikamaru surveyed the layout of the Narutos. I bet 3 missions wages that the real Naruto is one of the ones behind Sakura, up high so it doesn't look like he's standing behind her on purpose. Any minute Sakura will charge in, or more likely just hit the ground, taking out some of the clones along with Kakashi-sensei. Yeah, I'm not dumb enough to make that bet with you, Choji chuckled, sitting next to Ino. Luckily the branch was wide enough to handle his weight safely. When Kakashi-sensei decided to test genjutsus on his students by creating a fake Sasuke, Shikamaru heard Ino gasp. Choji put an arm around her shoulders, hugging her tight. The dark-haired boy watched as Sakura gained a broken expression and Naruto ground her teeth. Something touched his hand. Looking down he saw nothing, though he knew something had a hold of it. The warmth was back but there was shakiness to it, as though it was in pain. Shikamaru's eyes widened when he realized that Naruto had reached out with her chakra again, using Shikamaru to try and see through the genjutsu, or at least remind her that it was fake. This probably meant that she was still weak to genjutsus. Discreetly he funneled chakra into his hand, helping to ground Naruto without anyone knowing. He didn't know if she was allowed to get help from anyone other than Sakura in this fight. Once Sakura had dispelled the genjutsu, she told Naruto where Kakashi-sensei was, though Naruto informed her that she knew. Obviously the pinkette hadn't realized her teammate's ability yet. Naruto destroyed the tree Kakashi-sensei hid behind, forcing him into the open. Sakura taunted him, telling him to repeat himself, though as far as Shikamaru knew he hadn't spoken. Shinobi Battle Techniques Part 2, the Jonin started in a weak and shaky voice, Genjutsu. Naruto's chakra gave Shikamaru's hand a gentle squeeze before retreating, skimming over his fingers as it left. He wished he knew how to hold onto chakra bodies, but the technique was so rarely used. As Asuma-sensei had said, only ninja with a lot of chakra could throw their chakra out to such scale. It didn't have much combat use, except for maybe holding an opponent's feet in place until they knew what you were doing, but if the ninja was a sensory type like Naruto, it could be the most formidable tool in their arsenal. Shikamaru realized, watching Naruto's clone dispel out of the fake bell trap she pretended to fall for, that Naruto might pretend to be dumber than she was to throw her opponent off guard. Or maybe that was just when in battle. When around her friends there was no reason for her to hide who she truly was. It was impressive to see how well Sakura and Naruto worked together even after over 2 years apart. Naruto seemed to know instinctively that Sakura, whilst having massive strength and some genjutsu abilities, had little else in the way of attacking ability. She was a medical ninja after all. She was nimble but not quick with her attacks. Naruto, who had a larger range of abilities, used her skills to throw Kakashi-sensei off balance and draw him into Sakura's line of attack using shadow clones and transformation jutsus. It was well into the night when Kakashi-sensei turned to using ninjutsu, which was clearly his best area. All 3 ninjas were scratched up and dirty, but Naruto's breath was the most even out of the lot. Team 10 had to hop to new trees to both be able to watch the fight, and so they didn't get caught within it. Kakashi-sensei forced his students into retreat with his ninjutsu but left himself panting. It was clear that he needed to catch his breath by how he retreated into the forest on the opposite side of the clearing instead of pursuing Naruto and Sakura. Team 10 went in search of the 2 students, which was made easier by the fact that Naruto was leading Shikamaru closer. She must not have wanted them wandering through the forest. When Naruto's chakra left him, he realized they must have been close enough. Squinting through the dark, he spotted a mess of bright blonde hair. There, at the base of that tree. He pointed before leading his team closer. Sakura and Naruto were crouched against the trunk of a large tree, both breathing heavily. Naruto was keeping watch as they spoke to each other. "We don't have a chance of getting near those bells unless we can slow down his hands somehow," Sakura reasoned. "Like you said, it's no surprise. I mean, you'd expect Kakashi-sensei to be a strong opponent. He's smarter than Shikamaru, his sense of smell's sharper than Kiba's, Sharingan's sharper than Sasuke's. His taijutsu is better than Bushbrow's. On top of that, he's had more experience, than all of us combined. Okay, but even Kakashi-sensei has to have some weakness. He has to, right? Sakura almost sounded desperate. From their position, Shikamaru could see Naruto smile before putting on a thoughtful expression. She sat back against the tree trunk. A weakness. Naruto looked up before her eyes widened. There was something that didn't sit right with her behavior. It almost looked forced to Shikamaru. Hey, wait a sec, I got it. Naruto looked at Sakura with a grin that definitely wasn't forced. Well, if you really think Kakashi-sensei has a weakness, then let's hear it. Naruto giggled behind her hand. Oh, come on, Sakura, you know Kakashi-sensei as well as I do, you should be able to figure it out. Sakura started to look excited. Well, let's just pretend I can't, okay? Now come on, quit stalling. What is it? Okay, you really want to know? Naruto laughed behind her hand again as Asuma-sensei shot a look at Shikamaru, obviously wondering if he had worked it out. He hadn't. Yes, spill it. Shikamaru leant forward, wanting to know what Naruto had worked out. No one seemed to know what Kakashi-sensei's weakness was. I gave him his weakness. The book. If I risk spoiling the ending for him, he will block his ears and leave the bells wide open. Sasuke once told me that he could read lips with his Sharingan. I'll bet anything that Kakashi-sensei can too. I bet that he'll be so flustered from the threat that he won't think to turn away and run. He'll freak and close his eyes. He didn't think when I attacked him with the 1,000 years of death, and he reacted in a way that cost him more energy. Sakura gasped. Of course. I get it. It's so simple, it's brilliant. Yeah, like I said, you just have to think about it, and it's obvious. If you're right, it will be the one moment when we won't have to worry about his hand signs or his Sharingan. And that's when we take him down. Naruto grinned. Naruto, you really are the #1 most unpredictable, knucklehead ninja, Sakura practically squealed. It took them less than 5 minutes to find Kakashi-sensei and get the bells off of him. The trick was simple, and the look of panic on the Jonin's face so extreme that Team 10 couldn't help but laugh at Team 7's antics. When the fight was over, Naruto gave them a discreet wave before leaving the training grounds with Sakura. So, Sensei, since you brought us out here, does that mean you're going to shout us to dinner? Shikamaru asked with a sly smile. His sensei just sighed, jumping out of the tree and waiting for them to follow. It was well after dinner that Shikamaru spotted Naruto walking towards her apartment. Shikamaru jogged to catch up to her, slowing to his regular pace once he was beside her. Putting his hands in his pockets, he shot her a look out of the corner of his eye. You did that on purpose, didn't you? Did what on purpose? Naruto asked with a soft smile. Shikamaru almost forgot what he was talking about when Naruto looked at him like that. The book. You gave it to Kakashi-sensei when you did because you knew it could be used against him if needed. Why did you pretend that you just thought of it? Naruto moved towards an alley that was deserted before turning to look at Shikamaru. Her eyes were serious but still kind and soft, as though the harsh behavior of the village in Naruto's younger years had worked to uncover a rare stone instead of having sharpened a sword. I pretended for the same reason I didn't say anything about my sensing technique. Misdirecting my opponent and making them underestimate me is one of my biggest allies. Naruto smiled, tilting her head. But you already knew that. When he frowned in confusion, Naruto shook her head. You haven't underestimated me since the Chunin exams. Sometimes I think you overestimate me. Not possible. Shikamaru shook his head. You constantly surprise me. I could never expect more than you're capable of because I'm not sure I'm able to comprehend what you're capable of. Naruto dropped her head, still smiling. I have to get home. Who knows what my place looks like, and I will have to clean it before going to bed. Her speech ended with a large yawn, causing her to cover her mouth. Do you want help? After that fight you're bound to be tired and sore. With a grin the blonde nodded her head. That would be great. But don't you have to work with Tamari tomorrow? So I'll just need a couple of cups of coffee, Shikamaru shrugged. I haven't been sleeping well anyway, but I think I'll get a proper sleep after I help you clean. Naruto led the way back to her apartment, which was in desperate need of airing out and a good dust and clean. It took them at least 2 hours before they finally collapsed onto the couch in exhaustion. When they half laid other end of the lounge, Shikamaru pulled out the lemon in his pocket, turning it around in his hands. So are you going to tell me why you were 6 months late? You made us worry. Shikamaru stared at the divots in the lemon instead of looking at the blonde, worried she would know how true his statement was. Oh, that? Sorry, I thought Pervy Sage had told you all about our delay. He heard about this village that was known for their hot springs and regular springs. On top of that, their hot springs were unisex. Naruto rolled her eyes. There was no way I was pulling him away from that place. On the plus, I met this guy who was able to teach me sensory chakra techniques. We mainly trained in the regular springs. There was this one with an awesome waterfall, and a cave behind it. I swear I spent the entire 6 months in either swimmers or just naked. Shikamaru choked on his own saliva, sitting up awkwardly. Oh? So you trained naked? Naruto nodded, not appearing to understand the uncomfortable atmosphere. Yeah, about half the time. I met Haruki at the hot springs when his friend, Riko, ran into me. After getting to know her, I think she might have done it on purpose. She liked us going to the hot springs a little too much. That's one of the reasons Haruki would take me to the waterfall pool thingy. I forget what they are called. Though Haruki is a pervert too. Maybe I should worry about how it must be affecting my brain to have perverted senseis all the time. Trying to laugh at Naruto's joke, Shikamaru couldn't help but notice that Haruki's name literally meant the opposite to Shikamaru's ability. He was the sunlight, like Naruto's personality, whilst Shikamaru was the shadows. Well, it sounds like you had fun at least, whilst being naked for most of it. Shikamaru cleared his throat, forcing his mind to not picture anything Naruto said. Yeah, Naruto agreed in a drowsy voice. On the plus, no tan lines. Shikamaru looked over with shock, only to find Naruto fast asleep. He went to get up, only to realize that he had no energy left. With a shrug, he pulled the blanket down from the back of the couch where Naruto had thrown it after cleaning. He draped it mostly over the blonde. Shikamaru was thankful that he had taken his shoes off when he had entered the apartment. His father had drilled it into him to not have shoes on in bed, even a makeshift bed. Chapter 26, Jinchuriki? He had woken up before Naruto and had rose as quietly as he could, not wanting to wake the blonde. She even slept unusually. Her feet had made their way onto Shikamaru's lap, making it hard for him to get up. One arm was under her head, squishing her cheek and giving her mouth an odd shape. Drool trickled out of her mouth, pooling on the couch, and her other arm hung off the lounge, her fingers skimming the floor. Her blonde hair was as messy as ever, but without her forehead protector her hair looked longer and had a more feminine look. Gently, Shikamaru lifted Naruto's legs, scooting out from under them before lowering them back onto the couch. With a small smile, Shikamaru reached out and brushed his fingers over Naruto's cheek. He felt as well as heard Naruto release a deep sigh. Shikamaru. Sorry to wake you, he said, crouching down so that he was at the blonde's level. I have to get going, but go back to sleep. Shikamaru. Tamari. Naruto gave a groan, burying her face in the couch cushion. Before he could think of something to say, Naruto's breaths evened out, her back to Shikamaru. With one last smile at the blonde, he gathered up his vest and shoes and snuck out of the apartment, not wanting to wake Naruto again. He put his shoes and vest on in the hall and made his way out of the building. As he walked through the floor under Naruto's to get to the main flight of stairs, a woman opened her door and looked out at Shikamaru with disdain. She was wearing her slippers and dressing gown, her eyes crusted with sleep. He was more than willing to simply walk past the woman, but he heard her grumble to herself. How disgusting! Stopping, he turned back to the old lady who continued to glare at him. It only took his brain a moment to realize they were under Naruto's apartment, meaning the woman was probably Mrs. Huruma. What is your problem? That thing shouldn't have friends. And it shouldn't have overnight guests. What would your parents think? Mrs. Huruma pulled her gown tighter, as though to make as much space between the two as possible. In the painted glass that hung next to the door, Shikamaru could see his reflection. His shirt was a mess and his hair was in disarray. It was obvious what this woman thought Shikamaru had been doing in Naruto's apartment, something that made him blush red for two reasons. My parents taught me to judge a person on their behavior, and nothing else. And Naruto deserves friends more than anyone else, you old hag. If you think otherwise, then you don't know what a great person Naruto is. He is the kindest, most loving person I have ever met, and does not deserve to be treated the way you treat him. So stay out of mine and Naruto's business. He gave the woman his hardest glare, the one he reserved for enemy he knew he would have to kill, before stalking off down the hallway. It wasn't until he was on the bottom floor that he fixed his hair, not wanting Tamari to get the same idea as the old lady had. He knew from past experience that Tamari liked to leave the village early in the morning. As her escort, he knew he should see her to the gate, but he was enjoying just sitting in Naruto's house. The blonde appeared unaffected by his presence. Tamari gave him a smirk when she saw him, easily falling into step with him to the gate. Her eyes traveled over his form in a way that made him uncomfortable. It looks like you slept well. Her smirk grew. I guess. Did you wake Naruto up before you left? Shikamaru choked on his own saliva. What are you talking about? With a raised eyebrow, Tamari laughed at him. I can tell that they are the clothing you wore yesterday. Even if you wear the same uniform each day, I can tell the difference. I live with two brothers who like to sleep in their clothing. So you and Naruto obviously work things out. Hopefully a lot. It's not like that, Shikamaru yelped, turning red and looking around to make sure no one had overheard the blonde. Luckily most people were still asleep. I helped Naruto clean his apartment, and then we both fell asleep on the couch. Nothing else. And you call me a pervert? You are a pervert. You were staring at his ass. His ass is a little girly for my taste, but to each their own. Shikamaru quickly changed the conversation to Tamari's journey home once the gates came into view. The two chunins on guard were two of the biggest gossips in the village, though he knew those two males wouldn't judge him on his taste. After waving Tamari off, Shikamaru rubbed his eyes and made his way home to take a shower and change into some fresh clothing. His father was awake when he walked inside. For a moment he expected the same look he received off Tamari and the gate guards, but instead his father simply gave him a small, raised eyebrow. How is Naruto? Good. Probably still sleeping. Shikamaru scratched at his neck, wondering what was coming next. You have dirt on your face. Was Naruto's house that dirty? Shikaku turned back to the paper in his hands. Yeah. He didn't get anyone to look after his place while he was gone. He should have realized he could have asked you. Shikamaru stopped, thinking over his father's words. He probably thought it would be a bother for whoever he asked. But he's back now. And I'm going to go shower. It took him all day to finish all the paperwork for the Chunin exam, finalize the schedule, and organize the times with the academy exam room and the hotels. Once finished with all the details, Shikamaru entered Lady Tsunade's office to have her look over the paperwork. He hadn't had the chance to see Naruto, but figured she was already on her first mission since returning. The Hokage was clearly agitated. She had an unopened bottle of sake sitting on her desk and was in the middle of a staring contest with the lid. She had no cup ready, which heightened Shikamaru's anxiety. Lady Tsunade, is there anything I can help with? The woman raised her eyes slowly to Shikamaru's face, her hand twitching towards the bottle, as though his presence made it worse. He walked forward, putting the form on the desk and standing back, his hands in his pockets. Waiting. Finally, Lady Tsunade sighed, her eyes going back to the sake. Naruto, Kakashi, and Sakura can handle any situation? They are a skilled team? Although the words were a statement, the blonde shot Shikamaru worried looks, letting him know that they were truly questions. Of course. His heart started beating in his throat, making the words tight. So if one on the team was a person of interest for the enemy, I would still have nothing to worry about. Lady Tsunade, what's going on? Shikamaru sat down, showing that he was not going to leave. The woman played with the cork on her bottle, not meeting the Chunin's eye. Do you know much about Naruto's past? Do you mean how the fourth Hokage stuck the 9 tails into Naruto on the day he was born, after the monster killed Naruto's parents? If so, quite a lot. His bluntness must have shocked the Hokage, since she jerked and looked up sharply enough that she knocked over her bottle of sake. It rolled on the table's surface until it was straightened. Naruto actually told you? I knew you two were close, but. Lady Tsunade trailed off, her eyes still wide, making her look younger than she looked. Shikamaru could almost picture the little girl she once was. No, I worked it out based on things the villagers had said, things that had happened, and things Naruto had said to me. My father clarified my suspicions and informed me that it was classified. I haven't told anyone. Naruto isn't even aware that I know. Shikamaru spoke calmly, even though every nerve in his body thumped in fear of where the conversation was leading to. Did you know before you went to retrieve Sasuke? Lady Tsunade made it a point of staring at the bottle sitting on her desk, avoiding Shikamaru. Yes. I worked it out the day I became a Chunin. Now are you going to tell me who is after Naruto, or are you going to down the bottle of sake? Lady Tsunade sighed. We received word that the Kazekage was kidnapped by a group called the Akatsuki. They are targeting Jinchuriki. Naruto, Shikamaru clarified. They are targeting Naruto and Gaara. Yes. And I sent Naruto's team to retrieve Gaara from the enemy, hopefully before they have a chance to finish whatever plan they have set for the Jin boy. And if Team 7 fails this mission, then you have handed one of their targets to them. Shikamaru leant forward, putting his elbows on his knees and taking deep breaths. His blood moved thickly through his veins and his vision blurred. Think logically. Think logically, damn it! You send a backup team, right? No. There is no team available. Naruto's team won't reach Suna for at least another day. A team should be available by that time, but they won't reach Team 7 until it's too late. They don't need to reach Suna. Have Kakashi-sensei send word to us where the enemy is taking Gaara once they know, or at least as close a destination as possible. It's possible that the Akatsuki's location is between Suna and the Leaf, meaning the backup team's travel time will be halved. Hopefully, Suna will be able to provide a powerful team to go with Naruto's. But no matter what happens, you will be keeping me informed on what happens with this mission. Shikamaru's harsh tone made Lady Tsunade's eyes narrow. You really think you can demand things off of me? Shikamaru met the Hokage's hard stare with one of his own. When it comes to my friend being sent on a mission against an enemy targeting him and that are powerful enough to kidnap a Kage, then yes, I get to make demands. For a moment it looked as though Lady Tsunade was going to argue with him, but her face softened, and a small smile graced her features. I'm glad you care about Naruto so deeply, even with his guest. Shaking his head, Shikamaru sighed. I don't care about Naruto in spite of the Nine Tails. Being host to the Nine Tails has caused Naruto to suffer, and he's grown to cherish those who are there for him and to work hard to make sure that no one has to suffer like him. He is someone worth caring about, and the Nine Tails is a part of him. A part of him that has caused him pain, but a part nonetheless. I'm glad Naruto has you, Lady Tsunade concluded. I'll keep you informed of the mission. She opened the file that Shikamaru had handed her, clearing signaling for him to leave as she put away her bottle of alcohol, unopened. Lady Tsunade sent word the next day that she was sending Team Guy to back up Team Kakashi, and that she had followed his advice. Once Gaara's location was discovered, Kakashi-sensei was going to send word to the approaching team. Truthfully, Team Guy was definitely the best option, seeing as they had the fastest team in the entire village, with 2 Jonin members as well. The only problem was that Lady Tsunade wouldn't tell Shikamaru why she had suddenly, and so desperately sent a second team, and had given Guy-sensei orders to push his team to get to Team Kakashi as fast as they could. The more distressed the Hokage became, the more Shikamaru worried that there was information she was keeping from him. To try and calm his nerves, he met Choji for lunch, since the bigger Chunin had just returned from a mission. He gave Shikamaru a look before offering to pay for lunch, and they could go wherever the dark-haired man wanted to go. Without thinking, Shikamaru instantly said Ikuroku ramen. The moment he smelt the scents coming from the stall, he felt his shoulders ease, and the sickly, empty clenching of his stomach lessened. With each deep breath he took, he relaxed more and more. His knees still bounced violently when he had seated himself. What's wrong, Shikamaru? Choji asked when their bowls of noodles were put in front of them. Instead of digging in, Choji was turned towards his friend. A team is on a dangerous mission, and one of the members should not be on the mission at all, but he is. Choji frowned. Is he injured or underqualified? No. Shikamaru started, slowing eating his noodles. It's classified. It was true that it was still classified and no one was allowed to tell anyone. However, Shikamaru's silence came from another area he was ashamed of. He loved Naruto, and he knew what type of person she was. She would kill herself and in the process the Ninetales before letting it cause pain to anyone in the village. There was no negative taint of his image of her from learning that she had the Ninetales in her. Although he trusted Choji with his life, he wasn't so sure he trusted him with Naruto's secret. Shikamaru wouldn't have predicted that his own mother would be so hateful of Naruto, and yet she was. It was difficult for him to know how Choji would react. I'm sure they will be fine, Shikamaru concluded, making Choji turn to his cooling bowl of noodles with a doubtful look on his face. 4 days. It took 4 days for them to get word on how the mission had gone. The Sand had sent the message as soon as they themselves knew. Kankuro was still recovering from poisoning, but would survive thanks to Sakura. Kakashi-sensei had severe chakra depletion. 2 Akatsuki members were defeated, one by Sakura and a sand ninja named Lady Chio, who took down Sasori the puppet master, and the other by Naruto and Kakashi-sensei who took down someone named Deidara. Naruto was fine, and Gaara was alive, though the One-Tails had been extracted from his body. That part confused Shikamaru. When Naruto left, Shikamaru had done research into Jinchuriki, and had discovered that it was impossible to remove the tailed beast without killing the host. Shikamaru decided he just had to ask Naruto for the details. The main thing was that both Gaara and Naruto were alive, they had dealt a blow to their enemy, and they knew what they wanted with the Jinchuriki. They wanted to remove the tailed beasts, though for what purpose was still a mystery, unfortunately. When Lady Tsunade had said the words One-Tails to Shikamaru, he had paused before asking how many tailed beasts there were. 9. The One-Tails, Shikaku, is often referred to as the ultimate shield. It has the strongest defensive abilities. Lady Tsunade met him with an unwavering gaze, daring him to ask his next question. And the ultimate weapon? He swallowed around the lump in his throat. The Ninetales. Possibilities entered his mind. They weren't certain how many Akatsuki members there were, but he could still think of scenarios for their plans. Is it possible that they are extracting the tailed beasts to put them into Akatsuki members? Lady Tsunade sat back, thinking over the question. It's possible, though it would be stupid. At the raised eyebrows she received, she elaborated. Not everyone can carry a beast inside them safely. The 8 tails reportedly rejected over a dozen hosts before a strong enough host was found. The beasts don't want to be caged inside someone. They are always trying to get out. The seal that holds them has to be strong, and the host themselves has to be powerful. Why was Naruto chosen so young? There was no proof that he was going to turn out so powerful the day he was born, was there? Shikamaru wasn't even sure it was possible to measure someone's chakra when they were so young. He was chosen because he is an Uzumaki. Perhaps the last 2. When Naruto grows too old to continue, the Ninetales will have to be passed on to his child or grandchild. Shikamaru scratched his reddening cheek at this, shifting in his seat. He wondered if Naruto knew this need for her to have offspring. If Naruto was a male, then that would be an issue, since the blonde was only attracted to males. The Hokage either didn't notice Shikamaru's discomfort or ignored it, for she continued. The Uzumaki clan are the only known clan that can hold the Ninetales. They were known for their sealing ability and their strong life forces. They predominantly have long lifespans, so they are ideal for holding tailed beasts. They can live well into their hundreds without weakening like a normal person. My grandmother was the Ninetales Jinchuriki at one point. Does this satisfy your curiosity, Shikamaru? The Akatsuki have clearly been studying the Jinchuriki, so they would know that not everyone can hold the beasts. Even if the Akatsuki members are arrogant, it would be foolish of them to take the Ninetales and put it into anyone but an Uzumaki. So either they have an Uzumaki in their team, or they are planning something else with the tailed beasts, Shikamaru finished. After a moment of pondering, he stood. Thank you for being honest with me, Lady Tsunade. You are the only one of Naruto's friends that I will tell this to. When it comes out that Naruto is the Ninetales Jinchuriki, and it will come out with this enemy at the door, I trust you to stand by him, even if everyone else doesn't. If I didn't think you would, I would have kicked you out of my office long ago. With a nod, Shikamaru left the office, having a task at the academy to fulfill. He had promised Iruka-sensei that he would give a lesson. The entire walk to the school was filled with thoughts of Akatsuki and the information on Jinchuriki that filled Shikamaru's mind. He knew that the Uzumaki clan had been wiped out long ago, though it was possible that more than Naruto survived. If so, that meant there was a high possibility that Naruto's parent was the Jinchuriki before Naruto. However, her last name was Uzumaki, so that would mean it was her father. But Shikamaru couldn't remove the nagging feeling as he looked up at the fourth Hokage's stony monument that wasn't true. Naruto wasn't just an Uzumaki. Troublesome blonde. You always leave me with more questions than answers, Shikamaru muttered before dragging a hand over his face with a groan. Chapter 27, Orange. Choji's POV. There was only one real regret in his life, which ironically was connected to his fondest memory. It started when he was 6. He had always been big for his age, and as he became older, the more he heard the word fat directed at him. It stung, that word. It was made worse by the fact that girls were the ones who said it the most. Girls didn't seem to like boys who ate as much as he did. His mother was the exception. She had no issue with how much Choji's father ate, and could actually eat almost as much. He wanted to meet a girl like that. Not so he could date her, he was not ready for that, but so that he knew there were girls like that in the world still. He was in this frame of mind when he saw a butterfly. It had unusual markings on its wings, but it flew off before he could get a good look. Without thinking, he took chase. He was looking up at the butterfly, stopping him from noticing the orange and white figure in front of him. He barreled right into them, knocking them to the ground hard. Choji stayed standing, looking down at the one he had ran into. It was a little girl with shoulder-length, silky blonde hair, reminding him of when the sun hits ripples in the river. Her blue eyes were dull, looking at the ground. The white shirt she wore was unharmed, but dirt splattered her long, orange skirt. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry, she stammered, shaking, her eyes wide, filling with tears. Choji had never seen behavior like this. She shook so badly he thought she would fall apart, but at the same time she appeared to be shrinking into herself. She was pale, not naturally so, since her hands were tan, and she was skinny. The collarbone that peeked out from her shirt was protruding so badly that Choji could probably have wrapped his hand around it completely. The girl looked positively terrified, and when he held out his hand to help her up, she flinched, crawling away from him. I'm sorry. I won't do it again, she yelped as she shook her head. She tripped on her skirt as she went to get up, it being too long for her. You don't need to apologize, Choji assured her. It wasn't your fault. I wasn't watching where I was going. He sat down on his knees slowly, keeping his hands in his lap, visible to the girl. This calmed her down. I'm sorry. Are you hurt? She shook her head, her shaking slowly subsiding. That's good. My name is Choji, what's yours? Yuzu. Choji, there you are. At Choza's thundering voice, Yuzu jumped, trying to crawl away. Who's your friend? The girl froze, as though she hoped she would become invisible if she stayed still long enough. Choji's mother put down the picnic blanket she was holding, walking slowly up to Yuzu. Hello, sweetie, what's your name? The blonde didn't speak, didn't move, only her eyes widened more. She looked like a very frightened statue, with her arm outstretched so she could crawl forward, her knees unaligned. She would have made a very beautiful and thought-provoking piece of art if she wasn't real. Her name is Yuzu, Mom, Choji spoke up. What a pretty name. Choji's mom knelt a safe distance from Yuzu, smiling at the girl. Mine is Aiko. The woman was always a kind, loving person. Shikamaru had commented a number of times how she made people feel welcome and safe. She spoke softly to Yuzu, as though coaxing a baby rabbit out of hiding. Slowly Yuzu started moving again, putting her hand down and finally sitting up. Choza didn't move, and seemed to be trying to not breathe too loudly. He obviously knew his size and appearance would frighten Yuzu again. Choji's mother made sure to put an end to that. This is my husband, Choza. He looks scary, but he's a big teddy bear. What's a teddy bear? Yuzu whispered, speaking in front of the two adults for the first time. He's very cuddly. Oh. We're going to have a picnic, Choza started, indicating the basket he held. He spoke slowly, delicately, with a soft, open smile on his face. Do you want to join us, Yuzu? We have too much food, so you will be helping us. Choji realized that although he didn't understand Yuzu's behavior, his parents did. They knew what was wrong with her and how to help fix it. He wanted to ask them, but something about how Yuzu behaved made him decide he didn't want to know. Part of him didn't want Yuzu eating with them, judging him, but another part of him knew why her collarbone stood out like it was. And if there was one thing an Akimichi couldn't stand was someone going hungry. Slowly, Yuzu nodded, still looking like a frightened mouse. When the Akimichi family moved over to a soft patch of grass to lay their picnic blanket on, the little blonde girl trailed behind. Every time Choji tried to slow down for her, she would stop, staring at him with wide eyes. When they had put the blanket down and all sat on it, Choji's mother turned to Yuzu, patting the spot between her and Choji. It's alright, you can sit. When Yuzu's body just shook, Choza started to pull the food out of the picnic basket. As the smell from a variety of hot foods and fruit filled the air, Yuzu twitched, taking discreet, deep breaths. Aiko dished out a plate and put it in front of Yuzu's free spot before the two elder Akimichi started making small talk between the two of them, dishing out food for themselves and Choji. When his father handed him his plate, he also gave Choji a meaningful look. Out of the corner of his eye, he noticed Yuzu taking tiny steps towards the picnic blanket. Choji realized what his father was trying to tell him. Yuzu was like one of Shikamaru's deer when they first meet in Nanara. If you moved too fast, or paid them too much attention, then the deer became scared and ran away. Choji tried not to grin when Yuzu finally sat on her knees next to him. He tried to not breathe too deeply, in case she ran, but instead she simply picked up her chopsticks, looking at Aiko. It only took a glance for Choji to realize that Yuzu was trying to learn how to use them. With a smile at the small girl, Choji showed her how to hold the two wooden sticks, without saying a word. She copied him and then waited. Choji picked up a dumpling with his chopsticks, watching as Yuzu did the same. She waited until Choji took a bite before raising the dumpling to her lips. Her eyes lit up and a smile appeared on her face as she ate the rest of the dumpling. Once it was finished, Choji noticed that she didn't move on to another piece of food. Instead, she was watching the bigger boy, almost expectantly. When he picked up another piece of food, Yuzu picked up the same one from her plate. He didn't know why she waited for him to bite the food first, but he found himself not thinking about how much he ate, or how he must look to Yuzu and anyone who walked past. He ate until he was full, Yuzu matching him food for food until her belly swelled. I'm sorry about your skirt, Choji said as he ate a slice of pear. It's okay, Yuzu muttered, nibbling on her own slice of pear, the juice running down her fingers. It's not really mine. I got it from the charity bin. It's too big. Why did you choose it then? Choji asked, wiping his hands on a napkin. He figured he would let Yuzu finish her pear before he moved on to something else. I like the color. It makes me happy. Yuzu appeared calmer and open when distracted by food. She was having trouble keeping a hold of the slippery piece of fruit. You should always wear orange then, if it makes you happy. Yuzu looked down at her skirt before looking at Choji. Is that what this color is? Yep. He smiled as Yuzu put the last piece of pear into her mouth. The blonde girl sighed, resting back. She had long moved from her knees to sitting cross-legged. I feel warm and solid. I don't feel like I'm going to float away. I think you're full. Choji chuckled. I like this feeling. Thank you, Choji. Yuzu smiled brightly, her eyes lighting up when she did. The house rattled violently, making Choji jump awake. He lay in bed, wondering if the house was going to fall down on top of him. Once his mind settled down, he realized someone was knocking hard on the front door. He heard his father answer the door through his open window. Shikaku, what are you doing? It's 3 a.m. You look awful. Can I come in? The other man's gravelly voice was thickened, as though he was close to tears. Of course. Choji heard the front door close with a click and 2 sets of footsteps walk past his room, towards the living room. Holding his breath, Choji waited until the noise had dulled before getting out of bed. He quietly made his way across his room before opening the door. He crawled down the hall, knowing his footsteps would be too loud. Peeking around the corner, into the living room, he could see the shadowy forms of his father and Shikaka Nara. "Are you going to tell me why you tried to wake up the entire house?" Choza asked in an even voice. "Yoshino kicked me out." Shikaka took a rattling breath. "They attacked him. How can grown men and women justify hurting a little kid? He is the same age as Shikamaru, but Yoshino only sees a monster." "What did they do to him?" Choza whispered, appearing to know who his friend was talking about even though Choji didn't. "They destroyed his apartment. The furniture, the cupboards, even the food and utensils are destroyed. They ripped his clothing to shreds and his mattress. But they hurt him too. He has bruises up his arms, a couple of fractured ribs, and they tore his hair out. His scalp was bleeding. His hair looked red. That explains the blood on you. Is he okay?" I don't know. This all started because he had long hair. Who attacks a child over something like that? Or for any reason?" Shikaka made a choking sound before dropping his head into his hands. "I saw him only a few weeks ago. His hair was pretty," Choza commented solemnly. "Why did Yoshino kick you out though?" "I told her I was going to give part of my pay to the kid until everything was replaced. She didn't like that. Any chance I can stay here? It'll probably be for a couple of weeks at this rate. Only if you let me give some of my pay to Naruto as well." Choji heard the half-hearted chuckle from Shikaku. "Way to twist my arm." Before the two men could spot him, he crawled back to his room, wondering who Naruto was and why he was attacked. Students entered the room in batches of 2s or 3s. Choji sat in his usual spot, at the end of the aisle, and waited for Shikamaru to arrive. He looked over at the door, turning to face the front again as someone jumped in front of his desk. With a jump and a startled yelp, Choji saw the new student standing in front of him with a large smile on his face. He couldn't remember the boy's name. It started with an N. Choji was sure. He was a loud character. Not only was he loud-spoken, but he was loudly dressed. He sported a pair of pants that used to be white but was now a gray, a powder blue shirt and an orange, sleeveless jumper vest that clashed violently with his bright yellow hair. "Hiya," the boy started, with a wave at Choji, his smile growing to splitting length. "Look!" he exclaimed, pulling his vest out for Choji to see, as though he couldn't easily spot it anyway. "I'm wearing orange." Choji's eyes narrowed. The boy's voice was loud and grating, and within a few weeks he had disrupted the entire class. With a roll of his eyes, the bigger boy sat back, crossing his arms. "I can see that. You're a bit of an eyesore." It wasn't the first time that the boy had heard a statement like this from someone within the class, and yet he looked surprised. The blonde's bright eyes dimmed as his smile dropped. He swallowed thickly, looked at his feet. "Yeah, of course. Sorry for annoying you," the boy stammered, running his hands repeatedly over his bright vest, as though trying to dim the color. I'll just leave." The boy walked off, his shoulders slumped. When he dropped into a chair far from Choji, he rubbed at his eyes. What did the Uzumaki kid want? Choji jumped at the question, only to see Shikamaru standing next to Choji's chair. After a moment he realized what Shikamaru had said to him. "Uzumaki?" "Yeah, Uzumaki, Naruto." Shikamaru slid into the seat next to Choji, instantly putting his head down to fall asleep. It leaked into his mind slowly, but when it did he gasped. "Yuzu!" Looking over at the blonde, he pictured him with long hair and an orange skirt. It had been a year since he had seen Yuzu, and he had thought she was, well, female, but Naruto had the same large blue eyes, the same hue of blonde hair that no one else in the village had, and was wearing orange. If it was Yuzu, then he was wearing orange, because Choji told him to. The realization caused a pit to form in his stomach. He had insulted Naruto for showing him that the words he had spoken ages ago were still important. He went to stand and talk to Naruto, not knowing what he was going to say, when Iruka-sensei walked in. Their teacher told them all to sit and pay attention, cutting off Choji's chance to change seats. Today you will be taking a test, Iruka-sensei announced to a choir of groans. If you fail the test when I return the marks you will have detention, so work hard. Iruka-sensei slammed his hand down onto the desk in front of Shikamaru when he handed Choji the test sheet. Shikamaru sat up, rubbing his eyes and slid his piece of paper towards himself. Choji shot Naruto a look, to find that his eyes were wet, but he was now looking down at his test with a frown. Although he felt guilt claw its way through his stomach, Choji couldn't think of anything to make it better. He had been trying to find time to talk to Naruto alone. He had hoped he would be able to create the opportunity when he saw the blonde outside Shikamaru's house. Although Choji and Shikamaru had somewhere to be, there was still time to pull Naruto aside and speak to him about what Choji had done in the academy. But then a ninja had attacked Naruto. It was Shikamaru who had noticed first. He had looked away when Naruto addressed Choji about joining Team 7 for a mission. It didn't take much for Choji to tell that the blonde had first turned to Shikamaru to fill the position. When the dark-haired ninja tackled Naruto, Choji was surprised, and admittedly the thought of finally crossed his mind. But then he saw the black beasts barreling down on them. He grabbed them and squeezed, watching them pop into what looked like black ink. Looking down, Naruto's eyes were wide, his hand pressed against Shikamaru's chest, as though ready to push him away. Once Naruto gained a grasp on the situation, Shikamaru slowly moved from above Naruto, glaring their enemy down. He was so far away that it was hard to make out any facial features. He was pale though, with dark hair and clothing. It was, of course, Naruto who charged in for an attack. Thanks to that, the mysterious attacker, who seemed to be just some ninja wanting to rile Naruto up, Choji didn't find the time to apologize. It wasn't until Naruto returned from his mission that Choji was able to track down the energetic blonde. He had checked Naruto's apartment only to find that the genin wasn't home. However, he spotted the vibrant colors that signified Naruto's presence. Walking closer, he realized that the boy was standing in the front garden of the village orphanage. He was talking to some of the children that lived there, crouching so that he could hear them better. A little girl moved forward, sitting on Naruto's knee as she whispered into the blonde's ear, hugging a doll to her chest. The doll looked homemade, and as Choji looked around he noticed that all the children had a doll of some kind and Naruto was handing out more to those who were without one. Naruto spotted Choji walking closer, his smile dropping a little in the corners. Giving the girl on his knee a hug, Naruto said goodbye to the children around him, who all jumped forward for their own hugs. After the blonde had hugged the children goodbye, he stood, pulling the hem of his shorts back down. Although this was hardly the first time Choji had seen Naruto in odd clothing, it still caused him to pause. The orange shorts that Naruto wore had black piping, but only reached halfway down his thighs. They also sat on his hips in a way that did not fit male clothing. His dark green shirt had the red swirl on the back like the Chunin vest, and Naruto had orange streaks throughout his blonde hair. "Hey Naruto," Choji greeted, walking up to the orphanage's fence. "Can we talk?" "Yeah, sure." Naruto smiled at the orphans watching before picking up an empty bag and jumping over the fence. He led Choji away from the curious young gazes. "What is it you want?" "I'm meeting Shikamaru for lunch, and I want to see Hinata today too. I feel like I haven't seen her at all since I got back." "It's about when we were in the academy." Choji decided to be blunt, since he didn't want to keep Naruto from Shikamaru. When he only received a confused frown, he said the one word that would make him follow through with this conversation. "Yuzu." "Oh." Naruto crossed his arms over his chest, still frowning at Choji but without the confusion. "What about it?" "I wanted to apologize. I didn't recognize you, but even so it's no excuse. I'm sorry I was mean to you. I like your orange clothing. It suits you, and it makes you happy, so even if I didn't like it that shouldn't matter. I hope you can one day forgive me." Naruto's frown deepened, making Choji feel worse, until a large smile broke out on his face. "It's alright. My clothing is kind of an eyesore, but I don't care. You're forgiven. I like the streaks in your hair." Choji flicked one with his finger, feeling the difference in texture between Naruto's soft hair and the colored lock. "Thanks, I won them at a festival." At Choji's confused look, Naruto laughed and pulled back some of his blonde hair, revealing a clip connected to the orange locks. They're fake. What were you doing at the orphanage? I made dolls for the kids while I was traveling to keep me busy, and I was just handing them out. Anyway, I have to meet Shikamaru. See you later. Choji breathed as Naruto ran off. I didn't even know he could sew. It was surprising to find how easy it was to gain Naruto's forgiveness. All he had to do was admit he did something wrong, and the blonde was ready to move past it. It was rare to find such a thing in humans. As Choji walked past Ino's family's flower shop, he was beaconed in by Ino, who wanted to tell him that yet again Asuma-sensei had been in to buy flowers. Their teacher still denied that they were for Kurenai-sensei. Team 8 and Team 10 had started betting on when the two senseis would admit that they were dating. Currently Kiba was winning with the declaration of never. They are just one day going to stop denying it. At their wedding they will still never admit it. Their short conversation turned into a half an hour stay when Ino's mother demanded that Choji have a hot beverage and some homemade cookies, fresh out of the oven. Choji was hardly complaining. The only mother nicer than Ino's was his own in Choji's opinion. When he left the shop though, he was still hungry, and the alluring aroma of cooking noodles drew him in. When he ducked under the protective curtain of Ikuroku Ramen, he stopped, silently cursing his luck. He had hoped to give his best friend space so that he could have as much privacy with Naruto as he wanted. And yet, Choji had succeeded in walking in on a date, one that looked much more like a date than the day Shikamaru became a chunin. Choji remembered the look of annoyance and disappointment that sat on the genius face when Choji appeared. He often wondered how no one else noticed that his dinner with Naruto was meant just for them. Shikamaru and Naruto sat turned to face one another, their knees knocking against each other. When they saw Choji, they both looked over. "Hey, Choji, here for lunch?" Shikamaru asked, clearly having no intention of getting up if Choji was there for him. "Yeah, don't mind me." The bigger chunin looked at the empty seats, trying to decide how far to sit away from the two without appearing rude. "Grab a seat, you're going to have to wait a while," Shikamaru gestured to the two available seats behind him. "Tucci is making more noodles." Choji sat one away from Shikamaru as the dark-haired male turned back to a collection of torn pieces of napkin that sat on the counter between Shikamaru and Naruto. At first Choji thought it was rubbish someone had left until Shikamaru started explaining shogi to Naruto, pointing at various pieces of paper. That's when Choji recognized a pattern to the placements of the scrap paper. It was a makeshift shogi board. Whenever Shikamaru pointed at a piece, Naruto would point to the same one on his side, listening closely to what Shikamaru told him. Once Naruto appeared to have a grasp on the game, the two started to play. Choji observed them out of the corner of his eye, trying to fight the pleased smile that begged to appear on his lips. Shikamaru could be a funny, light-hearted guy, if he could be bothered, and if he was comfortable enough. Choji had seen that side of him many times, but never in such a public space. "A pawn can't move like that," Shikamaru joked, leaning forward to stop Naruto's hand. When he did, his free hand went to the blonde's knee to steady himself. "That's a rook," Naruto retorted, moving the piece with a laugh. He removed one of Shikamaru's scraps of paper, leaving Choji wondering what piece that paper had represented. "I think you're tricking me," taunted the Nara. He contemplated the makeshift board, pondering his next move. His stoic expression was broken by the grin trying to force its way onto his face. He tried to remain unmoving as Naruto's finger yet again poked Shikamaru's cheek, the blonde making a loud popping noise with his mouth. As he reached over to move one of his pieces, he gave Naruto's knee a squeeze, grinning when Naruto yelped and softly punched Shikamaru's shoulder. "Check. That's bad, right?" Naruto clarified, getting a laugh and a nod off Shikamaru. Choji noticed the smile Ayam shot at the two as she went about chopping up ingredients. It looked as though the three got to the food stall just after the lunch rush. Ayam was clearly enjoying watching the two customers. "Can that piece move there?" Choji couldn't clearly see where Naruto pointed, but he assumed it would save the blonde. "Only if they are a gold general," Shikamaru replied. Choji couldn't help but notice that his friend still hadn't moved his hand off Naruto's knee, and instead had moved it up just past the knee. "Well then it's a golden general," Naruto declared gleefully, reaching over to move the piece. "No you don't. If they are a gold general then that's checkmate for me." Shikamaru grabbed Naruto's wrist, though he smiled. So I win? Cool. No, you don't win. Shikamaru grabbed Naruto's other hand as it came over to move the piece. The dark-haired male laughed at the blonde's pouting expression. He had to wrestle with Naruto when the blonde tried to break out of his grasp. In the end, Shikamaru pulled one of Naruto's hands towards him, nipping at the palm and smirking when Naruto squealed. You're cheating. I am not. Naruto stopped trying to get his arms free and instead grinned. Admit it, you forgot which piece of paper was what piece on the shogi board. Yeah, Shikamaru planted a discreet kiss on the inside of Naruto's wrist. It could have easily been mistake for another nip if Choji hadn't been watching closely. He dropped their hands into his lap, running his thumb over Naruto's knuckles. I guess playing shogi with bits of torn-up napkin wasn't that smart. Oh well. Naruto shrugged, only for his stomach to grumble. He threw back his shoulders with a groan. He probably would have toppled backwards if Shikamaru hadn't been holding on to his hands. Shikamaru pulled Naruto's hands, making the blonde fly forward. Naruto was forced to stand on the footrest of his chair, his hands and Shikamaru's hands the only thing between the two. Looking down at the Nara, Naruto gave Shikamaru a surprised but amused smile. Shikamaru only grinned up at the blonde. How's it going? Naruto scrunched his nose up comically before returning to his seat as Tsuchi regretfully sat down their bowls of ramen. The elderly man twitched the corner of his mouth at Choji as he sat the Akimichi's bowl down, before discreetly looking at Naruto and Shikamaru. Choji just grinned in return. Although the two had food, they were still spending more time talking to each other than eating. They were also turned towards each other, and Shikamaru's hand had found Naruto's naked knee again. It wasn't until after Choji's third bowl of ramen, as he leant over the seat between him and Shikamaru for a napkin, that he noticed something. Shikamaru's hand was still on Naruto's thigh, his other hand holding his chopsticks as though nothing was unusual. However, Naruto's free arm was resting across the blonde's lap, and his free hand was on top of Shikamaru's. Naruto's fingers followed the dark-haired Chunin's digits up, moving over the back of Shikamaru's hand before moving back down to his fingers, continuing this motion again and again. Neither acknowledged what they were doing, and truthfully they probably both assumed no one could see their joined hands. It made Choji begin to wonder if they were already dating. There was no reason to keep it from anyone. Kiba would probably give Shikamaru grief for choosing Naruto to be with, but that would be Kiba's own way of showing his support. Naruto! A voice yelled, drawing all three males' attentions. Hinata stepped into the stall, followed by Kiba, who quickly sat down, ordered food and put his head down on the counter. Slowly, Shikamaru's hand moved off Naruto's leg before Naruto turned to give the female a one-armed hug. Hinata blushed darkly at the contact. I was hoping to see you today. I have a present for you. Leaning down, Naruto pulled something out of his bag on the ground, holding them out for Hinata. I won 2 sets at a festival and thought you would like some. Hinata took the light purple hair extensions, looking at them with bewilderment. When she noticed that they were the same as Naruto's orange ones, she asked the blonde to help her put them in. Naruto instructed her to sit, standing and clipping them in, making sure the clips were hidden. You can control the length by funneling chakra through them, Naruto explained, shortening the one he placed in Hinata's fringe. I had to shorten all mine today. Thank you, Naruto, Hinata squeaked. Was your hair longer before you came back? Shikamaru asked. Naruto looked over his shoulder, smiling tightly. Yeah. I cut it before I entered the village. Choji winced, remembering when Shikaku nearly knocked down his door. He wondered if Shikamaru knew of the incident, since the dark-haired Chunin reached out, putting a hand on Naruto's hip, the only body part he could reach. I would have liked to see you with long hair. Naruto half turned back to Shikamaru, opening his mouth to speak. He didn't get to talk, however, because someone burst through the protective curtain, wrapping an arm around Naruto's waist, their other hand going to the back of Naruto's head before they kissed the blonde. The assailant pulled Naruto up until their chests pressed together, a rumble almost like a laugh resonating from his throat. Pain radiated off Shikamaru so heavily that Choji could almost feel it. Kiba lifted his head at Hinata's surprised squeal, his eyes bulging in surprise. The man was a giant. He had to stoop to kiss Naruto, who was under average height for a male. The man was over 6 foot, with wide shoulders and thick arms. He had messy brown curls and tan skin like the one he held. Naruto's hands, that hung limp at his sides, lifted, pressing against the man's chest until he finally pried their bodies apart. Splattering, the blonde reached for the closest glass of water, which was Shikamaru's, and gurgled the substance before spitting it onto the ground. "Haruki, you ass!" Naruto wiped at his mouth with the back of his hand before he was attacked again, this time by a petite little girl who jumped into Naruto's unsuspecting arms. The girl had dark hair with a tinge of green and the tiniest build Choji had ever seen. He felt as though he would crush her with his little finger if he tried. The man, Haruki, was laughing, the splatter of freckles on his cheekbones appearing to dance as he doubled over with laughter. "Ah, what's wrong, babe? Call me that again and I will kick your ass," Naruto threatened with a deep growl, ignoring the girl who was hanging from the blonde's neck like a necklace. "Promise?" Haruki asked with the biggest, cheekiest grin Choji had ever seen. If the man hadn't just kissed Naruto, Choji would be inclined to like him. "Naruto," whined the girl, bouncing her body so it pulled at Naruto's neck. "You haven't said hello." "Hello, Rico, how is it going?" The girl appeared to be the definition of sweet and innocent. Choji couldn't help but smile at her. "Good, now that I have you pressed against me." Choji retracted his thought. "Introduce me to your hot friend." Naruto sighed. "No molesting them. This is Hinata, Kiba, Choji." Naruto gestured to each half-heartedly, stopping to look at Shikamaru, "and this is Shikamaru. Please don't stick your tongue down Naruto's throat." "I'm planning to eat here," Kiba moaned, his shoulders sunken. From what Choji had heard, he had been on a long mission. "He won't." Naruto shuddered. "I hate it when you do that." "Well then sense me next time and you won't be punished." Haruki just grinned, crossing his arms over his wide chest. "Hey Naruto, can you show us around?" Riko asked, finally detaching herself. "Well, I was kinda." Naruto looked over at Shikamaru. "It's fine. I'll teach you Shogi when we have an actual board." Shikamaru's voice sounded strained to Choji, and his shoulders were clearly tense. Naruto looked shocked. "Oh, okay then." He reached for his wallet, but Shikamaru held up his hand. "I've got this one." "Thanks if you're sure." "He's sure," Riko declared, pulling Naruto away by the hand. The mournful look on Shikamaru's face left Choji wondering what to do. When an idea formed, he wondered how badly he was going to regret it. The Leaf Village had an unusual legal age rule. For a civilian to be able to drink, they had to be 18. For a ninja, they had to be 16. Everyone knew why this was, but no one liked to point out the lower life expectancy for half the village's population. Ino, and Shikamaru had been drinking once with the Suma-sensei. It was the day of Ino's 16th birthday, the day after Shikamaru's birthday. It was to celebrate all three of them reaching 16, even if Choji had to wait 4 months. He hadn't really known what he was doing when he suggested to his friend that they go out drinking. In a way, he was hoping the atmosphere and the alcohol would erase the memory of Haruki kissing Naruto from Shikamaru's mind. Looking at how a depressed and drunk Shikamaru slumped over the table, Choji was starting to think it didn't work. "You know, Naruto didn't return the kiss," Choji pointed out. "Yeah, and she didn't return mine EVA." The bigger ninja frowned. He had thought of Naruto as a girl before too, but if Shikamaru was only infatuated with Naruto because he believed he was a she, then Shikamaru might be opening them both up to heartbreak. Perhaps it was just a slip of the tongue though. However, the bigger shock was that his friend had actually made a move on Naruto. When was this? When Naruto was about to leave with the Toad Sage Ta train. She just said I have to go and left. He did say she didn't mind our goodbye in the letter she sent me. Shikamaru took a swig from his sake bottle. "Did he push you away and wash out his mouth after calling you an ass?" Choji asked, sipping his own drink. He had had far less than Shikamaru and had noticed that the other male was starting to slur his words. "No," Shikamaru admitted slowly. "But he has said nen abu id since coming home. She obviously feels nahen." Choji snorted. "I don't think Naruto feels nothing. He's definitely more comfortable with you than he is with anyone else. The constant shifting of gender pronouns were confusing Choji, but at least they were only talking about Naruto, so that made it easier. A grin appeared on Shikamaru's face as he rested his head back. I'm glad. Naruto is more amazing than before. Oh, how so? Choji chuckled. Looks, power, heart. Everything. Her eyes remind me of the sky when I cloud watch. She has a million different smiles, and Naruto's ass is amazing. That one caused Choji to choke on his drink. Oh, he coughed, his eyes watering. Shikamaru nodded, taking a large gulp of his drink. Had ta forced myself no ta look today. Those pans will be the death of me. He took another mouthful of alcohol. You're in love with Naruto, aren't you? Choji asked, only coming to the realization of how deep his friend's feelings went now. No, Shikamaru snapped, draining his bottle and reaching for the waiting next one the waitress had sent to their table earlier. She had said it was from an admirer, but Choji could tell by the way she had looked at Shikamaru it had been from her. If I was in love with Naruto, then I could go of love with him. I love her, Choji, with everything I have. With a sigh, Choji pushed his bottle to the side, giving Shikamaru a leveled stare. Listen, Shikamaru, Naruto is a person who will forgive easily if you are genuine. If you do something and Naruto takes it the wrong way, then he won't hold it against you if you apologize. But I think Naruto is someone who finds it hard to believe good things can happen for him, like someone falling in love with him. Shikamaru continued to give him a mournful look as he drank his drink. He studied Choji. How can Naruto like me, when we're not alike? You and Naruto have things in common. I mean us. At Choji's raised eyebrows, Shikamaru sighed. She liked you in the academy. For a little by you were an ass and lost her. You're her type. That was not something Choji had known, and it made him feel even guiltier about what he had done. He had known that he had hurt Naruto, but to have done so when the blonde had a crush on him. That was when we were kids, and I think I might have been the first person to be nice to her. You two are definitely closer than Naruto and I. And taste changes over time. When Shikamaru continued to slump in his chair, Choji shook his head. You're not going home tonight. Your mom will go off at you. You can stay at mine. When Shikamaru nodded, Choji stood and started picking his way through the crowd to the bathroom. He figured that he and Shikamaru would head home soon, seeing as his friend was losing more and more of his speech. The only problem was that when he returned to their table, Shikamaru was gone.